County Council is now in session. The Honorable Chad Williams will give the invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Please bow with me. God, thank you for the many blessings you bestowed on our county. Please help us see them all as blessings. Please be with us tonight as we determine the best use of them. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kick the ball.
Our first order of business is oath of office. When I call your name, if you'd come forward. David Williams, Wendy Michael, Alan Abernathy, Stephen Strokus, Lonnie Manis, Manning Kimball, Pickens Friedman.
Thank you. It is an honor and privilege to administer the oath to our citizen volunteers for our board commission. As a council, thank you. After I administer the oath, council members may wish to say a few words to you. You need to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear.
I do solemnly swear
That I am duly qualified.
that I am duly qualified,
According to the Constitution of this state.
according to the Constitution of this state,
To exercise the duties of the office.
to exercise the duties of the office
To which I have been appointed.
to which I have been appointed,
And that I will.
and that I will,
To the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability,
Discharge the duties thereof.
discharge the duties thereof,
And preserve, protect, and defend.
preserve, protect, and defend
The Constitution of this state.
the Constitution of this state
And of the United States.
and of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you.
I ain't gonna hurt you yet. Thank you. Appreciate it. Good to see you, David.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, how are you? Good to see you, man. Yeah, you too.
Thanks, David.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell Gary I'm working on the roster. Yes, sir. Good to see you. Thank you, sir.
We're gonna double it last time.
Okay, sir. Talk to Christie about that. Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
Manning, we doubled it from last time you did it.
Thank you, sir. If I could, before we get to appearances, I want to introduce two new county staff members. First, I want to introduce Trish Startup. She's our Public Information Officer. If you would, stand up. You can speak if you want to.
Thank you for the introduction. As you know, I've been in the position a little over a month, and I'm really enjoying
And you're still
it.
here.
Still here, and just thankful for the opportunity. My background is in communications within local government, and I'm just excited to get York County's story out there.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And our next person, extremely important, just like Trish, is our money man, Kevin Madden, who is our treasurer. You want to have any comments, Kevin? I'm glad to have both of you.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. Today, I think, is my official start date. I was here a few days last week as well, thoroughly enjoying myself. I'm trying to jump right into everything. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our first speaker is, and I would ask for all people speaking to try to keep it to 5 or 10 minutes if you would. We have a lot of bases to cover. Is James Thurman? Yes, sir. Can you just come up to the podium and just be sure to give your name and address for everybody that comes forward. Name and address.
Hi, my name's James.
Yes, sir.
I live at 412 Double Eagle Trace. I'm in District 3. And we suffered a fire where I lost my home and business, and my family and I are living in a fifth wheel camper on the property, and we'd like to ask for an extension where we can rebuild. We're about 2 months away from beginning construction on it. Excuse me, raising the money to it's been a little difficult. We lost everything, and insurance paid for our property, it didn't pay for rebuilding. So it's been difficult. We had to come up with the money ourselves, and we're about 2 months away. So just want to see what I could do about taking care of that.
Thank you, sir. We just hear from you. We don't feedback.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Next person, Xavier Tufty. Yes, sir.
My name is Xavier Tufty. I live at 423 Shoreham Lane in Fort Mill. The reason for the discussion here tonight is in reference to a sewer spill that occurred on June the 6th of this year. It basically was the result of a backup in a sewer line that had not been maintained since the sewer line had been taken over by the county back in April of 2004. I came to find out that there had been really a complete lack of maintenance being taken care of property that belongs to the York County Water and Sewer, and essentially created a backup into my home and two of my neighbors' homes, Luis and Maria Cardona and Chris and Danielle Chambers, on the same cul-de-sac in my neighborhood of Chadwick 2 in the Regent Park neighborhood. Since then, the county water department had sent out an engineering team to basically inspect the line and found a sewer clog that was the result of what they deemed to be years worth of accumulation of food, oil, and grease, which by my view was basically an accumulation based on normal daily living activities that our families would go through. We scrape plates off of scrape our plates into the trash and then put our plates into a dishwasher and run it. And the resultant grease clog in the line below my home, I had pictures for the council to see, was on the order of about 3 feet long by 8 inches wide in diameter, which was the specific diameter of the main sewer line that led the sewer away from our homes. The basic gist of the problem at this point is that our claim has been denied by the South Carolina Insurance Reserve Fund, and the county water department seems to believe that it was the fault of the developer prior to the turnover, not making sure that the sewer lines were actually built properly. And our view is that if the sewer lines were installed incorrectly, then they should not have been taken possession by the county. What we are looking to try to get accomplished is, okay. Okay, I think I'll be all right. What we are looking to try to get accomplished is for the county to intercede with the county water department in order to really get this issue settled without having to go a legal route. The three homes collectively have total damages to the tune of about $145,000. This is not something that we had any means to be able to correct on our own. Had we tried to get into the sewer line to inspect it because we might have decided that it was time, we would have been tampering with county property, and therefore it could have been prosecuted for trespassing or potential damage to government property therein. So we had no way of being able to know that there was a problem until it actually existed. And given that the county has not done anything to maintain these lines since they've taken them over, it really would stand to reason that the county is ultimately responsible for making sure that this is handled in an appropriate way. What we are asking is for, one, a definitive approval or denial from the county to be able to move forward with the process. We got a denial from the South Carolina Insurance Reserve Fund independent adjuster, but we haven't gotten anything from anybody else indicating that they won't move forward on the process. We want to be able to settle this without having to go to court and cost taxpayers additional money. Anytime that we have to get lawyers involved, it's going to end up costing money for everybody involved. We would prefer to not have to do that, and for the county, specifically the York County Water and Sewer District, to do things the right way. Additionally, there was a third-party inspection that was completed by a company called Ionian, and they had recommendations that the County Water and Sewer District was really needing to implement some sort of regular maintenance process that still, to my knowledge, has not been completed. We haven't seen anybody come out from the county since the initial incident. Everybody that has come out since the initial incident has been some sort of an independent representative or contractor. And you know, we have no way of being able to implement the suggested recommendations for our individual homes because we're not certain that the county has done their job in maintaining the main line. So if we go and we clean out our clean-out lines from our homes and flush that into the main line, now we're at risk for creating another clog because we're not certain that that line has been cleaned. We simply are asking for the county, specifically the County Water and Sewer Department, to honor its obligations to maintain, manage, and operate, per South Carolina code, their property to avoid these kinds of issues from happening again. Council, I thank you for your time. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir.
Would you like the pictures?
We have it if you'd like to.
We got it up.
Oh,
Go ahead.
So fast forward.
There's a, the arrow button to the.
So this was a letter of the county taking possession, York County Engineering Department taking possession of the sewer line back in 2004. This specifically was the email request pursuant to a FOIA request that I made on July the 6th, requesting maintenance records and a maintenance schedule for the main sewer lines. And as you can see by the bottom paragraph, York County Water and Sewer has no maintenance records of work orders for the gravity sewer line. The next page, this is the page that I had received as a part of the FOIA request indicating, is there any way to blow that up at all? I'll be happy to forward this information to any of the council members that want to review it. In about the middle of the page, it would indicate that the county has the responsibility to manage, operate, and maintain their property in an efficient manner. Per our research, there is no residential maintenance or sewer maintenance policy or procedures that we could lay our hands on. There is, however, a commercial sewer line maintenance program that's very clearly outlined on the county website. Webster defines maintenance as the act of upkeep of property or equipment. That hasn't been done in 12 years. That is a sampling of the grease clog that was taken out of the line below my home. The elevations of the three affected homes basically raise around the cul-de-sac, where on this end, my home is on this end, and they kind of step down, and then that clog was taken out of the main sewer line below my home. As you can see, it's a pretty big clog, and we're talking about coming out of an 8-inch sewer line. This is from the conclusion section of the Ionian inspection report on June the 13th, which occurred a week after the initial spill occurred. And what you can see, is there a pointer on this thing?
Yeah, button at the top.
Okay, so as you can see, we had no reason to report a blockage because we'd never had a spill before out of the main sewer line. So, you know, intuitively, it would follow that we wouldn't make a phone call to report anything. Ionian, who is the third-party representative that was hired by the South Carolina Insurance Reserve Fund, concludes that the June 6, 2000 incident was a result of years of accumulation of buildup of fats, oils, and grease. Ionian recommends that thoroughly cleaning the PVC waste lines at these 6 residences, which we would love to do, but we want to make sure that we do that into a clean sewer line to avoid a future backup. Ionian also recommends that the York County Water and Sewer Department provide routine inspections of the subject dip line to monitor and document its condition and take appropriate measures to clean out future blockages as they may occur. You know, why do we need to wait until something happens before we actually do something to maintain something that is going to create a much larger volume of sewage waste as the county continues to develop? We need to be proactive about this and not reactive to it. And this is just in conclusion, making some of the same points that I already did. And finally, we want to avoid going to court if we can. We're asking the county to find a way to be able to get this, to make us whole, so we can get our homes back into the pre-spill condition. And then we're happy to work with York County Water and Sewer in order to maintain and make sure that these lines don't clog again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Next person's Carrie Tilley. Carrie, if you could keep it to 10 minutes or less, okay?
Oh, I can probably do a little better than that if y'all need me
Okay,
to.
super.
I have a long presentation, but I gave that out at McKelvey a couple of weeks ago. So this is the abbreviated version. We've been talking about the institutional plan and the different sites. So tonight I want to talk about McKelvey and also the collections. But in the plan, we had a priority for all that applied to all of our sites to create meaningful, engaging, and authentic visitor experiences and learning opportunities. And Goal 4 relates to the McKelvey campus, where we're promoting as a regional historical center for Carolina Piedmont research, education, and preservation of cultural resources. And historical being a key word there with where we're going with the future and what we think we can do and the ties to the History Center and the archives we have there. We've got 4 strategies under that goal. So we want to unite the collective roles of all we do there. So the Lowry Family Theater, the Historical Center, the Archives Collections, and the school itself, the old McKelvey School itself, and unite those. We want to determine the role of how are we using the school and expand our operations and educational opportunities. The big one is strategy number 3, where we have to address preservation needs of the McKelvey Center. And in particular, we're looking at the windows there. They need some attention. A lot of folks in York are very interested in the building and have a passion for it. And that's really the next big thing that we need to address. And to address the windows, we really need to know what are we going to do with the building to justify the expense. So that's what we're working on. We're going to work on a master plan on that. And then the work on the leadership role in the proposed Southern campaign of the American Revolution National Heritage Corridor. And that's something that's before Congress, or actually hopefully will be before Congress. It's jumped through all the hoops, and now they need a congressional committee to consider whether they want a Southern Campaign of the American Revolution National Heritage Corridor in our area, where we can partner with a lot of the other communities in telling that story. Jumping ahead just to talk about collections, this is what we do behind the scenes. A lot of it's the more technical part, but why do we collect what we collect, and how do we collect it, and how do we provide for it? That's the big part. And so we want to continue building a collection of objects and archives that represent the Carolina Piedmont past and present. And under that, 3 strategies to clearly define the scope of CHM collections. So what do we collect? And ensure the items that we do collect and that we're spending resources on match up with our mission. And the 3rd strategy is to make sure we have the capacity to ensure the long-term preservation, because collections are about what's here 100 years from now, not just what you can put in an exhibit. So that's in a nutshell what we're doing at McKelvey. I'm very excited about it. I appreciate y'all letting me speak about our institutional plan. I welcome the opportunity to speak to any of y'all individually or collectively about some of our plans as we move forward. One last thing, I do have to tell y'all that last time I was here, I gave you some bad information on, I was projecting where we'd be at the end of the year. I said we'd be at 95,000 visitors. We're actually at 97, so I thought I'd share that. So thank y'all for your time.
Thanks, Gary,
You
appreciate
got
it.
8 more minutes.
I'll yield. I'm sure somebody will take it.
Okay, next will be a presentation by Rob Weaver, the tax assessor regarding the South Carolina and North Carolina boundary line.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Rob Weaver. I'm the tax assessor here. I'm here to give you a short presentation regarding the North and South Carolina boundary line. The boundary line was originally surveyed in the 1700s. Several years ago, the boundary line was resurveyed using modern technology, and several discrepancies were found. As a result, the South Carolina General Assembly passed the Senate Bill 667. This bill adopts the new boundary line. According to the Geodetic Survey Office, the final plats will be recorded in our county for property affected by the new state line in the next couple of months. Keep in mind, these final plats must be recorded in the York County Register of Deeds office before the assessor's office can map or value the properties. Now, according to the Boundary Line Commission, the affected property owners in both states have received letters throughout this process and have been well informed regarding the boundary line project. Okay, there's a couple items addressed in the bill that I'd like to bring to your attention. This bill takes effect as of January 1st, 2017. Taxpayers are not liable for any taxes, nor are they entitled to any refunds for periods prior to the boundary clarification date. Example, historically, your house has been taxed in York County, and now your house is taxed in North Carolina. You can't ask York County government for a refund, nor can York County tax property owners for prior years. Properties located in York County would not be subject to the 15% valuation cap. However, when our county implements the next reassessment schedule for 2020, these properties will be subject to the 15% valuation cap. Affected property owners will have to apply for legal residence tax reduction, farm use tax reduction, and property tax exemptions. The York County Assessor's Office will send an assessment letter to all property owners affected by the new state line. The property owners will have 90 days from the date of the assessment letter to appeal the value of their York County assessment. Affected property owners will receive a tax bill on property now located in South Carolina, probably sometime in October of 2017. This chart shows 11 properties. York County will lose the entire house to Gaston County. Let me explain column number 1, the left column there, right beside the map number column. That first column represents the number given to the property by the surveyors when they did their first field work. The estimated tax dollar loss is $7,000. The next chart shows 8 properties. York County will lose part of the property to Gaston County. Estimated tax loss is $2,600. Now this chart shows 8 properties. York County will gain a portion from Gaston County. The estimated tax gain is around $2,600. This chart shows 5 properties. York County will lose the entire house to Mecklenburg County. The estimated tax loss is $10,000. There's 2 properties. York County will lose a portion of the house to Mecklenburg County. Estimated tax loss is $1,400. And there's one property, York County will gain a portion of the house from Mecklenburg County, estimated tax gain $1,900. This slide summarizes the property losses and gains. We're losing 26 properties. We're gaining 9 for estimated net total tax dollar loss, $16,590. And the questions from citizens regarding this law can be directed to the following people. This concludes my presentation. I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Anybody have a question for this? Mr. Williams?
The only thing I wanted to clarify on the 15% cap, you said those are, it says in York County now, does that mean effectively the ones that are outside of York County now, when they come in, it will be basically an ATI, and then next time it'll be subject to the 15%?
Yes, sir, that's a good way of looking at it, absolutely.
That's what
Before the next reassessment.
At first, I
2020.
couldn't tell where they were now, okay.
Yeah, yeah. When we take it from another county,
Right.
it will not be subject to the 15% cap. But for the 2020 reassessment, it will.
Okay.
Oh, but Mr. Henderson.
Being that this is in my district, and I know they've been tossing this back and forth for many, many years. Why now, I don't understand. I know they all had to take off and go fight the Revolutionary War, and that's probably why it's got, if I remember hearing the story about it, it's because of the Revolutionary War. I guess there's some people, a lot of unhappy people. How many, if you will, how many businesses are involved here as far as that goes?
I think you're talking about 1, 2, 3, about 4 commercial properties, and all the other properties are residential.
Would it be safe to say that this could possibly decide whether they survive? I know anything can happen.
Right.
But I know that the reasoning a lot of people will come across the line is for the gas being lesser expensive. I'm just very concerned about those businesses, and I guess there's not much that we can do at this point. What else? I mean, will they be able to file any type of suit or anything to try to prevent this, and is it worth it? Or is it a done deal?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I would defer those questions, I think, to the county attorney.
Yeah, they basically told us that this was state law now, so
So it's done,
it has been approved,
signed,
by
sealed, and delivered.
both sides, yes, sir, North and South Carolina.
That's all I've got to ask.
All right. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
your time.
Next will be the DP3 Architects presentation. Jim, did you want to introduce them?
Thanks. Good evening. I'm pleased to be here in front of you tonight. We're presenting the third of 6 projects that is part of your 2015 building program. I've got Mr. Mike Pry with me with DP3. He's going to go over all the details of the project. It's the new public work facilities. And if you'll recall, Public Works includes really 2 projects, the recycling center and then the public works support facility. So real quick, I want to spin through and talk about, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, what a schematic design is. I'm not going to go through it again, but it's just a refresher. That's what schematic, it basically shapes and verifies the budget. We have 2 more phases ahead of us, design development and construction documents. The specific criteria of the Public Works project is building a new vehicle maintenance building, building a new road maintenance equipment storage building, renovating the existing Public Works facility, and renovating the refueling station. The development budget's almost $13 million. Construction budget of that is almost $11 million. And we're schedule is February. We started design, and we plan to occupy in 18. It's a multi-phase project. For example, we've got to maintain the vehicle maintenance facility, but when we build a new one, we'll demo that one to build a new equipment storage. But we're staying on that site. We've got to try to have the best use of that site as far as efficiency goes. Schematic estimate is a little over $10 million, and that represents about an $850,000 under budget number. Now, as I said before, a couple weeks ago, where we are at schematic design, there's a lot of assumptions because we don't have the full working document. So we're doing some square foot numbers, we're doing some very tangible numbers as well, but I feel comfortable where we are and moving forward. And this is the schedule. We plan to, it's the middle section of the schedule represents this project. We intend to receive bids in February and turn the project over multi-phased in March of 18. Any questions before I turn it over to Mike?
Yeah, is there a concern, just due to the amount of construction that's happening in this area, that we're going to see much higher bids and less people bidding on our project?
So the issue is there's a lot of, during the recession, we lost about 20% of our workforce. That workforce is gone, is not coming back. We do a quarterly economic forecast specific to this market, Rock Hill, Charlotte market. And the criteria in that is value of work on the streets and cumulative subcontract and contractor market. And so the material prices are not really fluctuating that much. What's driving costs right now, or I'm not going to say solely, but 80% of it is being driven by lack of labor in the market. And if you dive or drill down into it, it's the subcontract market, the actual people that are doing the work. It's a lack of skilled labor in the market. So the forecast is a spike in 2018 of about 12%, and then it ramps back down, comes back in equilibrium in 2020. Of course, that's with the forecast of knowing what we know now, value of work on the street or in planning. Does that answer your question?
So it's never been more true, time is money in construction.
We want to get to, and it's not just that, it's, there's a lot of, we're competing with a lot of different municipalities and private organizations. The people that get to the market first are going to be, are going to benefit. So we're pushing to get these projects out, and we don't want to compete with ourselves either. We don't want to flood the market all at one time, but the first quarter of next year, the last quarter of this year, there's going to be a good bit of activity on our part. But we want to stagger them where we have it some time between each project, at least bidding. So.
Let me hit you with one more question before the presentation. This might be more for David Harmon than for the two of y'all. You might want to pitch in, but, you know, half of this, what percentage is the recycling center
Of this
project?
Yeah, 45%.
So just in the past week or so, I've seen some reports that recycling centers are crashing right now. Like the biggest company, Waste Management, their recycling division nationally lost, I can't remember the figure now, $6 to $10 million or something like that, and recycling return is not showing the returns it used to show. Is that, are we still looking good in terms of the return on investment?
The markets do change. There's no doubt the markets change, and we're probably in a down cycle right now for the market. But
So you've seen these kind of fluctuations
we've seen
before?
That's been a trend that we've seen for a number of years.
Okay, because there was this big splash nationally about recycling's not the good return that it used to be, kind of thing, so.
Another part of our equation is landfill feed avoidance too, is it not?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, which is true, because the other option is just throw it in the landfill. So the balance is still positive for us committing to this. Okay. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate being here. Appreciate the opportunity to work with Jim Cumming and Eric Reckett and his staff. We worked throughout the summer to develop a plan for this facility, explored a lot of different options out there. We challenged their staff of trying to separate their needs and their wants. determine exactly what they need to function, but then be able to look out into the future and make sure we have enough growth capability within the plan and not just settle for a minimized plan. So just going to give you a quick overview of the project and kind of where we are, and then open for any questions. If you're not familiar with the project, this is the current site on Public Works Road here, Complex Lane going over to the Moss Justice Center here. Comprised of an existing administration building, existing road maintenance and equipment maintenance building, auction yard area for surplus vehicles being auctioned off, and then the fuel island area here. The buildings are well used, well beyond their years, and are kind of tired at this point, with the exception of the existing administration building. It has very good bones, and we think we can salvage that and renovate it and enhance it with some additions and some slight modifications. Fuel islands are in great shape, just need a little cosmetic repair to them. The existing road maintenance building, we actually explored a couple different options to save that building and salvage it, renovate it and expand it, and did some plans and some layouts for that. At the end of the day, what we're presenting tonight is a new building for the road maintenance department, because functionally it just makes more sense to build a new building from the ground up and not try to salvage this particular building for its intended function. Existing service yard area, the whole site will get completely redone to accommodate new parking needs for staff, improving the safety of the site, separating staff vehicles from fleet vehicles. So we're redesigning the site from that. Looking to the future, expanding the CNG time fill islands space that were just added out there. And then just overall enhancing the entire complex and making it more safe and secure for the staff and for visitors there. Again, functionally, we've looked at increasing space needs by 10 to 20% looking long term. So all these various spaces do have growth anticipated for them. But again, the buildings have reached their limit and are in need of expansion. So what we've looked at on this final option that we explored here, this is the blue is the existing administration maintenance building here. This is Complex Lane and Public Works Road. We're looking at creating two new structures. Green would be a new road maintenance building, and the purple is a new equipment vehicle maintenance building. As Jim alluded, before we can tear down the existing equipment building that's in this place, we need to build this. So it is a phased approach. We'll build this, tear down the existing building, and build a new road maintenance building, and then complete the site work on the site. In addition to that, we're looking at an addition, the small area here for a new administration, water and sewer department space for them. We've explored, again, a lot of opportunities. This is the existing maintenance building. This is the line of the existing maintenance administration building. So we're doing an addition to the front of that will house all the new administration, water and sewer, and road maintenance office areas. Creating new support space. Right now, their existing bathrooms have been taken over really for file space and other support storage space. So we're going to recapture those, reconfigure them, get them to the appropriate restroom needs they need, muster space, training room space that they desperately need out there. Create all of that in this central support space. Then the balance of this building is still for maintaining some of the county's purchasing space in that building. New road maintenance building will accommodate all of their dump truck needs and trailering needs, as well as small engine repair and some other miscellaneous storage spaces, and a new expanded sign shop for them. And then lastly, the largest building, about 24,000 square feet, is their equipment/vehicle maintenance building. That consists of light-duty bays on this side, which is what you imagine when you go to a car dealership, the service bays that you go into for your vehicle repairs. And then the heavy side, replacing all their heavy-duty maintenance bays with a pit, some lifts, all drive-through bays, and then support new parts areas and support spaces in the middle there. And then lastly, vehicle wash needs. They do have truck wash needs. This is not an automated wash like some counties do have, but this is just the wanting drive-through operations. That's important for maintaining the overall life expectancy of your vehicles, to be able to keep them washed on a regular basis. And so we're creating a new wash bay building specifically for that need. So the final layout, as it's proposed here, again, Complex Lane here, Public Works Drive on this side, is creating really a campus. The blue line that you see is a secure fence line with gates that would lock off on each side here. Secure staff parking in the middle of the site, and then fleet drive-through circulation all around the site here to maintain and minimize the conflict between those two. Also enhancing the safety of the personnel walking from building to building with some new walkways, sidewalk areas to get them from building to building without unnecessarily having to cross vehicular travel paths. And then we start looking at the massing of the buildings. The massing and scale of the buildings would be identical to the existing maintenance building that's out there. So what you see in yellow is all the new buildings, the white's the existing building out there. So it would be in keeping with the character of the campus on the site there. This is just an early concept image. We haven't gotten into colors or specific materials or textures at this point, but we do want these to be long-term durable buildings. So we would do masonry down low to where it's going to take the most abuse. We could look at metal up top. We're looking at pre-engineered structures, which have a great value, great for long-term spans, great economy, and so we propose that for these buildings as well. With that, ends my presentation. I'll answer any questions you may have, or bring Jim back up here to answer anything.
That's the standard pitch, right? 6, 8 pitch, something like that?
That's about a 1.5 and 12 is existing metal roof slope.
Okay.
So we maintain that existing slope on the campus. Forgot one slide here, sorry. The cupola is up top. When we talk about enhancements of the space, letting daylighting into the space, that's going to help on our energy, our daylighting, from sustainability. Gives us a way to get some exhausting out of there too. So it'll enhance the quality of the space and the ability to work in there and save energy at the same time. So that's an early concept image of the inside.
Any questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it. Yes, sir. Thanks, Jim. Next is the public forum. Now, several people signed up for the Davy property. I guess that's the way you're putting it. That's a public hearing. So for the people that signed up for that, you'll have more than 2 minutes at the public hearing. So I'll just wait and call for you at the public hearing, which is the first thing. So that should work out better for you. But we did have 2 people sign up. And here again, remember now, it's just 2 minutes. So Rob, well, actually not Rob, I saw you first, but Will Mitchell signed up first. Yes, sir. And remember, you just have 2 minutes.
Hello. Will Mitchell, President of Chamber of Commerce, Greater York Chamber of Commerce here.
Yes, sir.
You need my name and address again?
Yes, sir.
Will Mitchell with 1044 North Bershaber Road in Clover, Mr. Winkler's district. So anyway, I'm here to express our chamber's support of the new Economic Development Project Development Fund. So we have come together with a resolution that I'd like to read for you. It is a resolution supporting the proposed York County ordinance entitled Economic Development Project Development Fund. Lots of developments in there. Whereas the Greater York Chamber of Commerce wants York County to prosper and attract new business and industry and to encourage existing business and industry to grow and prosper, and whereas more resources are needed for the York County Economic Development Board to be successful in attracting new business and industry and in helping existing business and industry to grow. And whereas the York County County Council is considering on the 3rd reading at its meeting today as an ordinance entitled the Economic Development Project Development Fund to provide additional funds for the above purposes. Now therefore it be resolved that the Board of Directors of the Greater York Chamber of Commerce, that the York County Council enact the Economic Development Project Development Fund ordinance to promote business and industry and growth in York County, and that copies of this resolution be provided to the members of the County Council prior to the vote. So you guys probably should have one of those in there. So.
We got them.
But we support it. Hope you guys do too. All right,
Thanks, Will. Appreciate it. Rob?
Good evening. My name is Rob Hudson, 568 Sweet Peach Lane, Fort Mill, South Carolina. I'm here speaking on behalf of the board as residing board chairman for Economic Development Board here in York County. Also speaking out in favor of the Product Development Fund ordinance that's before you right now. Obviously, we support it greatly, but it's absolutely essential that we pass this in order to continue to develop and make available site-ready property, spec buildings, in order for the county to remain its competitive, remain at a competitive level for future economic development, be it for the enhancement of and growth of existing companies that reside in York County, as well as for companies that are moving in from outside the county, outside the state, and even outside the country. Having had personally landed 2 companies here or had a hand in landing 2 companies here locally, in York County. I can tell you that those companies would not have located here had it not been for readily available property, buildings and/or land. Same I can say with Balzers Orlicon that just moved out to Waterford and Rock Hill. That likely would not have happened had there not been a spec building or site-ready land. I'm working with 3 companies right now that are looking at moving to this area, and I can tell you in each and every case that site-ready land is absolutely essential to the decision-making process for those companies. So we're just asking that you would absolutely consider this and pass this evening, as it's we see it as essential. We've had recommendations from not only Secretary Hitt from Commerce that this needs to be done, that we need to be investing in our own product development, but also from the recent study and assessment that was done by an outside source. So I just ask for your support on this, and thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it. So the rest of the people that signed up to discuss the Davy property rezoning. So, and that included Youngblood, it looks like Barini, Goodson, Williams, Summers. I think that was it. So if you heard your name, just when I point out the public hearing, just come forward and I'll just pick you off as you raise your hand or whatever. But that's actually the next item, the first public hearing. Consider second reading and public hearing of case number 1611, rezone property from RC1 to BD3 at 4581 Charlotte Highway in the Lake Wiley community. Anybody here want to speak against the rezoning? Against the rezoning? Yes, ma'am. And everybody be sure to give your name and address.
Thank you. I'm on the list. Leah Youngblood at 58 Honeysuckle Woods, which is across the street from the site. I'm concerned about this rezoning because of the intensity of the BD3 zoning district. It allows many uses that are simply not appropriate to abut an existing single-family neighborhood. I'm grateful that Mr. Davy has agreed to condition the rezoning request on excluding some of the more impactful of those uses, and I hope that if this property is rezoned, you will incorporate those exclusions into the zoning for the site. I also hope that you will consider incorporating our suggested conditions regarding noise, odors, lighting, buffering, and so forth, or similar ones, into the rezoning action in order to better protect the River Hills residents' quality of lives and investment in the community. Putting aside my general concerns about the BD3 zoning district for a moment, the development that Mr. Davy is proposing is pretty intense. Several office warehouse buildings that could have any number of commercial or light industrial type uses. The development could have impacts such as noise from trucks or other operations, glare from lighting, odors, visual impacts from the buildings and parking lots, and more. So I would ask that you consider incorporating our suggested development standards into the zoning for the site. They are a little more stringent than what ordinarily would be allowed, which I believe is appropriate given the proximity of this project site to our homes. It is not like this tract is located on Highway 41 with just other commercial uses adjacent. It directly abuts several homes in our neighborhood. In my view, the most reasonable compromise for this property is one that would allow Mr. Davy to develop his property, but would give the neighborhood adequate protections from any negative impacts of that development. I'm asking you to help us all find that middle ground, and if it cannot be found, to deny the request. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Yes, ma'am. You're opposed? Against?
Teresa Bereni. I'm also on the list. I live at 23 Woodvine Lane in the River Hills community, Clover, South Carolina. I agree with the statements that Leah Youngblood has given. I too appreciate Mr. Davy's intentions to adopt several of the restrictions the River Hills community has requested, but I'm in agreement with our other River Hills residents and neighbors here tonight, and as evidenced by the signatures on the petition set forth that you all have a copy of. I request that the board further impose the restrictions on this site per the community's request regarding buffer zone requirements, noise, lighting, and odor ordinances, but not only for the request set forth today for rezoning, but for the site itself in the event the property is resold at some future date. Our request is not to restrict Mr. Davies' commercial development. Our request is to protect the properties, the property values, and the neighbors of the River Hills community. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We're still against. Against? Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm Pete Goodson, 56 Honeysuckle Woods in Clover in this community. I lost the coin toss. I'm speaking for my wife. And I don't want to be redundant. I think the first two speakers did a great job of presenting some of the technical things. I'd just like to paint a picture, if that's the right phrase, to think this is a little bit different than most rezonings where you have a neighborhood and across the street you have some undeveloped land where the neighborhood's trying to keep everything around it residential. This lot actually is surrounded on three sides. I mean, it comes into a residential neighborhood that's been around 50 some odd years, and it's been, in fact, I live right across the street from it. The property line for this rezoning request is actually closer than my neighbors across the street. In other words, I'd have houses, my house, and all of a sudden coming right in here is a commercial development. That's one of the reasons we're so concerned about this. I mean, we're talking about Honeysuckle Woods is a country lane would be a exaggeration of exactly how wide it is. I don't have the exact measurements, but I would like to say that it's certainly not any further away with me to that wall. Okay? So our concern is a commercial development being put within the boundaries, basically. Part of that lot is within the boundaries of the community. If you could, I'd like you to take a look at the lot, the plat, whatever the technical term is, and note how it is actually into our community, and maybe perhaps be able to give that special consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am. Let me guess, Mary Williams? Huh? Oh, everybody else is right in line with how they, we skipped over Mary.
I actually have a copy of the plat map that he was just referring to if you're interested in seeing it, if you want to have a visual. But my name is Karen Summers. I'm the general manager of the River Hills Community Association, and our office is located at 102 Hamilton's Ferry in Lake Wiley. I have been appointed by the board of directors to speak on their behalf this evening, and I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be heard with regard to this case. A detailed letter was mailed to all the county officials from Jack Leff, who is our board president, and he provided the detailed request for this rezoning proposal. Due to the time constraints, I'll make my points at a high level where the details were provided in this letter. As a representative of the entire community, and specifically for those who live along the affected area adjacent to the parcel in question, we have serious concerns with regard to the BD3 rezoning. Our role is to protect the quiet enjoyment of the residents' property and to protect the property values to the best extent that we can. We find this expansive rezoning is not in the best interest of a single-family home community. However, Mr. Davey has been very open and communicative with the association and residents leading up to this hearing tonight. We appreciate his cooperation and agreeing to certain BD3 use restrictions to follow. We are concerned about the future use of the land, as Teresa and Leah have expressed, and who may buy the land later. We request the following use restrictions to be documented in an approval if it's made. That there would be no automotive, boat service repair or customization, no hospitals, medical clinics, animal hospitals, clinics, or kennels, grocery stores, RV parks, truck operations, funeral homes, lodges or civic clubs, motels, hotels, adult entertainment, and bars. Additionally, Mr. Davies has already tentatively agreed to a 50-foot buffer, but we would like to request a 75-foot buffer. We would also like to request, and I think Mr. Davies has already agreed, that there would be no vehicular access onto Honeysuckle Woods within River Hills. We ask you to consider an additional set of restrictions to protect the residents from the impact of the proposed development due to the fact that the property in question is not on Highway 59, but behind the other commercial businesses and directly adjacent to the certain River Hills properties, and you can see these designated on your own GIS. So the other restrictions that we would like to request are building setbacks of 100 feet, that the existing vegetation that remains on Honeysuckle remain as a buffer. It's a whole lot of bamboo. That additional vegetation be planted where it does not exist along the perimeter of the River Hills property lines, that there be a 40-foot building height restriction rather than the 50 in the code, that there would be light restrictions that would prevent light bleeding and glare to the residents along Honeysuckle and the two lots that butt up to it directly, and that the hours of operations would be limited to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. to restrict noise pollution, and to consider necessary measures to limit any kind of odors. You can see that these requests are directly related to the quiet enjoyment of the property of River Hills residents and their property values. As an association, we are excited about the growth and development of the Lake Wiley area. However, we ask that the County Council carefully consider how land is being developed and be mindful of the areas that directly impact residential neighborhoods. Thank you so much for hearing our concerns.
Thank you, ma'am. Is Mary Williams here? Let me go ahead and get you.
Well, Ray wanted to speak as well.
Oh, both of you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Want us both at the same time?
We're Ray and Mary Williams. We're
Yes,
with the Lake Wiley Civic Association. And we have
Give me your
concern.
address.
Your address.
Address.
313 Squirrel Lane, Lake Wiley. We want to weigh in on this as part of the Lake Wiley Civic Association and express our concern with the rezoning request. We think there are quality of life issues associated with this, especially for the people who live adjacent to this proposed development. And looking at the application, it does look like the developer has made some concessions, but key concessions like light, noise pollution, odor pollution, operating hours, all of these things that will impact families with small children were not taken into account. And when I read the rezoning case, things to look at is that they make a comment about it's running up next to a BD1, BD2, BD3 area, but it's surrounded on three sides by RC1. And I assume when people moved in there, they would appropriately assume that it was going to stay RC1. Looking at the differences between RC1 and BD3, it's pretty significant. RC1 requires one development, 1 unit per acre. And here, it's open to all sorts of things in terms of townhomes and apartments, et cetera. So all of a sudden, you open up a can of worms by rezoning this as a BD3, which is surrounded by a residential area. The other thing that we're concerned about is the minimum buffer zone, and I think that was addressed before. Right now, the only egress is going onto Honeysuckle Lane, which has been noted in here, which is a private road. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The other thing that we need to look at is that area has a traffic rating of F, and now we're going to add trucks moving in and out of their parking lot onto 49. That needs to be considered. They have a septic tank and water. Are we going to allow that to be maintained for this complex? Or are they going to have to be required to tie into the city water and sewer system? That hasn't been addressed. And on the last page of this, It says, as a matter of policy, no request to change the text of the ordinance or the map shall be acted upon favorably. So I assume what this is saying is that all of these restrictions that people are talking about in order to manage this development would not be considered. Thank you.
Yes, and I'm Mary Williams at 313 Squirrel Lane. And I echo the sentiments of the River Hills residents, as well as my husband. You know, we're talking about safety, we're talking about environment, and we're talking about quality of life, which is the mantra of the Lake Wiley Civic Association. And all three of those are in jeopardy by this rezoning request. I did go on the York County website before coming here to look at the full plan that's been presented. And if you look at the Google picture, the aerial picture of this particular lot, it's got an old house in there, I guess, the one that they want to demolish, but you can also see it being surrounded on three sides by residential area. There's only 25% of it that is actually already, that's already, I think it's BD2 or zone. So 75% of it is already residential. This is already a residential conservation RC1 rating, or that's what it is assigned to to this particular plot of land, and I'm not clear that how they're going to get a curb cut off of Highway 49 to get back into that property should it be rezoned. So there's a lot of factors to consider here. I think it's great that the Lake Wiley residents have been working with the developer, but I just think that there's a lot of other BD3 property available in Lake Wiley, in fact, right about across the street from where this is, that would not need to be rezoned. So why rezone a residential piece of property when there's already property available? There's plenty of it available in Lake Wiley, as well as UD zoning. So thank you for your time.
Thank you both. Still opposed? Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm Frank Tucker, 41 Honeysuckle, and we just moved here last August, and unfortunately, our property backs up to this property, and we had no idea, were not informed that there's any potential for anything like this being right behind our home. Due to the lay of the land, our home is set back towards the back of the property, so we have very little space back there before this property line. And I echo the sentiments of the other speakers and would like you to consider not rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Just curious, as he comes up here, anybody else opposed? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Scott Clinton, 43 Honeysuckle Woods, Lake Wiley. Our property is next door to Mr. Tucker's property and backs up to the proposed area that we're all talking about. My wife and I moved in here about 2 years ago with the idea that this is a quiet community where we can start and raise a family. We knew that this was a large residential piece of property behind us, keyword being residential. As everyone else has indicated, this property is surrounded by residents. It has a very narrow window of commercial access in and out. As it stands, there's already a commercial property that is within eyesight and earshot of our home. And the idea of a second industrial property being constructed, honestly, it will take our property values and throw it in the toilet. It will create an environment that's not suitable for a young family. And I cannot oppose this strongly enough, any rezoning. So that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, anybody for the reason? Yes, sir. Are you sure?
I'm Russ Davey.
Yes, sir.
14609 Pleasant Hill Road. It's a Charlotte address, but it's a part of the Lake Wiley community. I currently have an office at 4381 Charlotte Highway, which is right here. this is where the property is that we're discussing today. My property is 30 feet away from the River Hills fence, or the people that live on Honeysuckle Road. I've been in there since 1986, so it's 30-plus years, and I've never had one complaint. It's about my particular building is about a 6,500 square foot, and it's divided in four office condominiums, and with each one of them having a little warehouse space. My little company is using all the warehouse space that we have in the back of those four office condominiums, because I've outgrown what was available in my office. So I'm trying to relocate inside of Lake Wiley. And I already own this property, and I think it's a good location. My kind of business doesn't need curb appeal. I don't have signage, and all I need is an address. And we're an industrial distributor, and so what I have found is there's a great need for this kind of space in Lake Wiley. I agree with the chamber. We're forcing people to go across the bridge. We could reduce that if we could just pull them off at 4581 and build an attractive facilities there. My dream is to even have covered parking places to get out of the sunshine and, make it nice. It's ironic, but I've had several complaints with the renter that was in the property. But I'll restate, I've never had one complaint, and I'm in the back door of the River Hills people right now. I keep missing where it's surrounded by three sides. It looks like two sides on this piece of paper. I've agreed to everything that was presented with minor exceptions. And most of the exception is where it is really subjective, when they're talking about appropriate landscaping and appropriate fencing and appropriate, I think that's opening up a whole can of worms for a never-ending battle. So I just think we can't agree on subjective issues. Hard issues, I do agree. I'm not, it's already been stated, I think we can keep the use of the property limited to other than what's on this list that's been presented. I have a long history with the people in River Hills. Many of my friends, I've had employees that lived in River Hills. I am a citizen, and I'm out picking up trash in York County almost every week. I'm against inappropriate lighting or noise. I've fought and won those battles before. I'm just sensitive to what their desires are. I agree with a 50-foot setback. The BD3 is 30. I don't know what this is going to do to damage my development. But what I plan to do is put in enough office space for maybe a dozen or 1,500 small businesses like myself. We need that desperately in that neighborhood. We have none of that. I would have to go to Mecklenburg. That'd be the easiest thing for me to do. I guess that sums it up. Any questions?
Oh, we don't ask, we just
Okay.
listen. Anybody else for? We have a motion to close the public hearing?
When Monk get here?
We have a motion to close? Need a motion?
Motion closed.
We have a second? Discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. I need a new motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
could I ask a quick question?
Yes, sir.
To the planning
Yes,
zoning? Ms. Miller, I was wanting to ask and find out, at this time, in other words, I guess my concern right now would be a lot to do with the traffic and all the other development that's going on there as well. At this point in time, and I know the TIA is, to some degree, we can exercise that rule even as it stands. And I'm just very concerned about the excessive traffic, because you basically in my opinion, you would be rubbing salt into a wound at this point in order to allow something like this. Could I have your feedback on my thought process concerning excessive traffic?
It's difficult for staff to determine anything about traffic. We don't have a site plan. We usually analyze these under the worst-case scenario for BD3, regardless of what the applicant is proposing, unless he's going to commit to something. So at this point, all we can do is point out what the existing traffic conditions are, which is a level of service of F in certain areas. And if, once we have a site plan and we go to site development, we could request a TIA at that point.
Now that there's questions about the, how many sides that had RC on it, is it 3 or is it 2? It looks like 3, but I'm not, I want to hear your point.
I think it depends on how you're looking at the map. There is commercial to the west. Looks like in front of it there is BD3, and then there is the residential to the east and the south.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that to not accept this rezoning. That is my motion at this time.
Do we have a second? Second. Discussion. Mr.
I'd just like to
Mr.
say that at this point, I am very, very concerned about the traffic issues out there. I mean, this thing, it's a bleeding wound that we seem to not be able to fix. And somewhere, someone has to have the ability, and within the guidelines and confines of the law, and we're looking after safety. A lot of times I feel like we're not really paying close attention to safety. Is looking at I think we tend to look at strictly, just strictly some of the basic guidelines when we're not looking at the issues of evacuation possibly taking place concerning Duke Power, ways in and over the North Carolina line there. Just a number of reasons, and I'd like to think that at this point in time, it'd be better to do this, and I'd like to think that I might be saving somebody's life because of the traffic issues being so excessive. So that's my story, and I'm sticking with it right now.
Any other comment? Mr. Williams?
Yeah, I guess I felt that the community might be more receptive to this, because I know if they were talking about building a neighborhood, that they would be against it, because that's what we hear in Lake Wiley, is no more neighborhoods. And most of we didn't hear, usually we hear a lot about traffic. There were a few mentions of traffic, but most of it were about if they're going to build it, let's make sure the standards are okay. And I guess denied it at first reading, we can deny it at second reading, we can deny it at third. I see some merit in going forward and seeing if there can be some agreement with, if they can meet an acceptable commercial development, I think is best in the long-term interest to the folks of Lake Wiley than another residential development, which is about right. So I would encourage that tack, but I understand where you're coming from.
Mr. Winkler?
Quick question. As it is now, Ms. Miller, how many homes, and I think I look here, how many residences could be put onto that property?
40?
On 4 acres.
Give me just a moment,
How many
please.
acres? I thought 40 acres, yeah.
It's a, for RC1,
Oh,
it's
4
one
acres.
dwelling
I think
unit
it's
per
40
acre.
acres.
4.
Before.
All right, I'm torn at this point as well. It looks like Mr. Davies has worked with the residents quite a bit. We got it past the first reading. Other than maybe one person, I didn't hear anybody say absolutely no, I'm 100% against it. But I heard a lot of people say they'd like to see some more concessions from Mr. Davies. So I'm inclined to let it go through this second reading to give the residents a little more time to work with Mr. Davies to see if he can settle some of that before we get to a third reading. We've had some work together here, it looks like, and that's what again, that's the way a development should be done, in my opinion, is working with the residents to try to come to an agreement that everybody can settle on. And we've made some progress from the first reading, but I don't think we're there yet. So I would like to support the second reading to give more time for the residents to work with Mr. Davies and see if we can get to that point. So I will not support
The motion.
Mr. Henderson's motion.
Let me get through everybody, and I'll be back to you. Anybody else?
I just
Mr. Roddy?
I just make a quick comment. We always count on staff to evaluate situations and kind of give us their expertise. And, with the property being, it says the rezone is consistent with the comprehensive land use plan. It is consistent with the character of the surrounding areas. And hearing that the developer has went and made numerous attempts, and the community has come out and made attempts to try to come up with a plan that they all can live with. Sometimes I know we go against what staff says when they say it's not consistent, we vote for it. But here they're saying, this could fit, this could work, only if a few things can get worked out between members of the community and the developer. And we've taken things from first reading to second reading and at least giving them a shot all the way to third reading to try to get them worked out. I don't know if we are pulling the trigger too soon to kill this. We've all asked for things to go on and give the community a chance to work it out. And when I saw that staff made its points about it and put in put some restrictions in on what can go in and what couldn't go in, I don't want to deny another opportunity, because we have heard so many people come in and say no more rooftops, no more rooftops. And now we have a piece of property that's trying to go bring some commercial. We're hearing a no. So I would like to see another attempt be made over another couple of weeks to try to sell this. And if not, I don't have a overwhelming concern about traffic, because no traffic information is being presented that this would be detrimental to the area. So I'm not going to go off the preconceived notion that there's possible traffic, because we don't know what the traffic's going to be until we know what's going in. So I'm not going to hold that against a possible development. So I would like to see it go on to a third reading.
That it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have one
Ms.
question.
Cox?
I appreciate the folks coming out and expressing their concern, and I think what we're struggling with up here is the fact that we just passed a comp plan that invited the folks to come out and express their concern against how things were going to be zoned. And so this comp plan that was just passed a month ago seems to say this area is suitable for BD3. That's what is, we passed this comp plan and we spent a year and a half getting folks to come out and to express their concern. And so that is where I'm having a little bit of a hiccup, and would have liked to have seen some more discussions with the community residents and the business, because our tax base is out of whack right now. We have residents, we used to be 60-40 and we're no longer that. We need to get our industry back. That helps all of our tax base. I'm struggling, because I said when we did this comp plan, we're going to follow this comp plan, and apparently there was no
concern at that time, and with the small portion of acreage, 4.6 acres, there's obviously not an opportunity here for that residential area to be some big, huge residence. So, that's it.
Okay. Let me make a point before Mr. Henderson makes another point. And I apologize for the acreage. I was thinking I heard 46. Didn't hear the point part, 4.6. But I kind of, I understand Mr. Henderson's situation, and if this was third reading, I would maybe be more open to that, but seeing that Mr. Davies really trying to work hard with the residents based on the points Ms. Cox made, based on the concerns about every time we get more houses built, there's a big uproar, let's have more business, less houses. I still, as positive as he's worked with the neighbors and all the restrictions he's agreed to with some of the requests added that I heard was set back a 75-foot buffer, which he may be totally open to, more plants. I think this needs to be given a third chance, so I'm not going to support the motion as it is to allow for a third reading. And then Mr. Henderson.
Well, first, on this second round, it's a bit of a stretch for that thing to be like 2.5 sides there being, surrounded by RC. Folks, many of the reasons why, it's out of sight, out of mind. If you're never going through there or hardly ever going through there, and I'm telling you, it does depend on when you go through there. At least 4.5 hours a day, it is bumper to bumper. People try their best to avoid going through there, and it's still bumper to bumper. On any given side street, going through there at that time, it is very, very difficult for people. I've got to consider the elderly trying to get into that traffic. I've got to consider young, inexperienced drivers trying to get into that traffic, in and out, into the suicide lanes, as they call them. I've got to consider all that. There's been some serious wrecks all up and down that whole area. And I don't know if like I said, it's out of sight, out of mind. If many of us, I don't think you've been over there and seen this when it's in its worst condition. It's always on a Sunday afternoon when you're on a trip or something like that, because I go on those trips myself to see my my in-laws. But when I go see different people like that, it's smooth sailing. Well, I know what it's like when it gets the hardest to get in and out over there. I've known about several wrecks where people have died, probably unnecessarily. People have been seriously injured, probably unnecessarily, because of bad management. And we didn't have the guts to say no. And again, the traffic, the safety, the evacuation issues that could come up, and we're by far forgetting the most important and the fourth branch of government, which is the ultimate branch of government, is in the mission statement prior to our great document. We, the people. I've got 8 pages of people here that don't want this. And they're making it very plain. And yes, my benefit of the doubt was the first round. And at this point now, I can't disregard 8 pages of signatures. And I think it's going to be a shame if anyone else does.
I'd just like to say one more thing.
Sure. Well, let me
You
let
wanna
Mr.
speak?
Johnson speak, and I'll come back to you.
I see Mr. Henderson's point of view on this. I have, being in District 1, we know a little thing about bad traffic. But I'm struggling with the fact that, I mean, this could go residential. And I think what Ms. Cox said hit it on the head. We have a land use plan that we just adopted that said this is what we should do with this property. It doesn't make sense. It is hard to now tell people, well, we're not going to do with what we just said. We just spent a year and a half telling you we're going to do this with the property, now we don't. Now we're not going to allow these uses with the property. Should there be a greater buffer? I don't have any problem with seeing a greater buffer, and I think the residents have a real gripe there about that. Should there be some restrictions specifically in here talking about lighting, making sure the lighting focuses down and in, not backwards towards the homes? Yes, that should be a part of this as well. Certainly, 100-foot setbacks, that's a pretty large setback. But certainly, I have no problem with this going to a third reading in hopes that we can get a further compromise from Mr. Davy and the River Hills neighborhood and the neighbors. And if we can't, then we'll all come back here and this group will make that decision. But I am struggling more than anything, not with the fact of this rezoning, but with the fact that I have a rezoning that fits a comprehensive plan that all we've talked about for 2 years is passing it. And here we are, now we have it, and the very first chance we get to enforce it, we may not. So I would vote against the motion.
Ms. Cox.
I was just going to say, we still have third reading, and, that this is not a guarantee, but I think it's an opportunity to see if there's a way to come and work together on that, and I hope that you guys are able to do it.
Question on the motion. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
No.
No. So do we have a new motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, yes?
Subject to the restrictions.
Yes.
I just want to point out that we are encouraging to get together, and I understand Mr. Davis' concerns about about vague language. Measurable, if it's not measurable, it's not enforceable. So, but there's, y'all are well represented with some technical people that can help you with some of these restrictions, and I encourage y'all to get together and come up with something that everybody can use. I really don't think you want more houses there, but y'all know better than I do, but that's what I would encourage before third reading.
And who gave the motion, Robert? Who gave it?
Mr.
No,
Johnson.
I think I gave it.
Yeah, and
Who's
so
second?
including as restrictions as
I'll make the motion
Seconded.
again pursuant to the restrictions
Oh,
as
yeah.
previously stated. And I don't read that the 50-foot buffer is in there, but Mr. Davies said it, so I'm going to go ahead and at least say the 50-foot buffer.
Mr. Johnson, may I ask for clarification?
You
There were the restrictions that were in the staff report, which were presented by Mr. Davies, and those are limited to uses. The residents of River Hills then presented after we had put this on, after we had sent it through on the agenda, which is fine, their proposed restrictions and conditions. Just so I'm clear, which ones are you referring
I'm
to?
referring to the restrictions from staff.
Okay.
You want me to read them?
listed on the agenda.
Listed on the agenda.
These are the applicant's proposed, yes.
Yes.
That's okay.
Per the applicant, listed on the agenda, in addition to a 50-foot buffer zone.
Okay, let's try to wrap this up. Mr. Henderson.
Yes, may I ask Mr. Johnson if he would reconsider his motion to add that they would consider other negotiations that have been mentioned and concerned about altogether in this meeting tonight?
I would certainly encourage the applicant to meet with these people and do what you can so that this third reading goes the way you want it and the way they want it. There has to be some compromise here. I'm not sure it's appropriate for a motion, but I'm strongly encouraged.
Right. You don't need it in the motion.
Thank you.
Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item. Who did the second? I think I did. Bump.
Mr. Bump.
Next item, council to consider second reading and hold a public hearing of an ordinance to amend the code of the county of York, South Carolina, sections 92.3, fire code, 150.04A, building code, 150.04B, residential code, 150.06, electrical code, 150.08 Gas Code, 150.09 Plumbing Code, 150.10 Mechanical Code, and add 150.12 International Existing Building Code in order to incorporate certain provisions of the Fire Code and certain administrative provisions of construction-related codes as modified and adopted by the South Carolina Building Codes Council for mandatory enforcement by all jurisdictions within the state of South Carolina, to provide for a public hearing and to provide for other matters related thereto. Anybody here want to speak in favor? Anybody here opposed?
Move close.
Got a
Second.
discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Need a new motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item. Consider approval of an agreement by and among York County, the Cultural and Heritage Commission, and the Nation Ford Land Trust for the implementation of a 25-year commitment to a trail easement with public access for a segment of the Carolina Thread Trail.
Could you restate it? Move to approve.
Second.
I wonder how long you'd make it. Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item. Consider third reading of an ordinance to amend the code of the County of York, Chapter 32, Section 32.36A1 and A2 for the purpose of creating staggered three-year terms for board members serving on the Culture and Heritage Commission, to set out the transition of sitting members to the newly established initial staggered terms, and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item. Consider third reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 35 of the York County Code relating to taxation and finance so as to add new Section 35.150 entitled Economic Development Project Development Fund, to provide for the creation of the fund and its purposes and uses, and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes.
Yes, Ms. Cox.
I'm against corporate welfare. I'm against government growth. I'm against using public money to improve special interest or individual property owners. With that said, I have conducted a considerable amount of research. I've met with our Director of Economic Development. I've met with several members of the board. While I would much prefer, and I think there are a lot of details that we do not have in this plan, and it gives me some uneasiness to say that we're going to reserve this funds without having a specific plan of where they're going to go. What I can recognize is that 10 years ago, we had a good balance of industry, commercial versus residential. And within the last 8 years, that has flip-flopped to the point of now we have 60% residential to 40% industry and commercial. Our comp plan is designed to help that. I see this as a mechanism for us to use our funds wisely to create opportunities for the most, use these funds for the highest and best use of our county. I have trust in our director that he's going to recommend projects that can go online very soon, and to use that to help our community fix this problem. This is a major problem, and we need to fix it. I will say that one thing that does trouble me is that if this is a good idea today, it'll be a good idea 2 years from now, 5 years from now. I think we ought to consider, and I would ask this council as they're going through considering them making their comments, that we consider a sunset provision on this ordinance that would mean that it would expire by its terms. I would like 2 years while this council is still on board. That only means that we would have to vote on it again, that we would have to bring it up before council again, and make sure that where we are 2 years from now is the place we want to be. It won't fix all the problems in 2 years, I get that, but at least we will have more answers. We will have an ability to come up with a structure. Who's going to be looking at these funds? Who's going to be making recommendations? We'll have 2 years behind our belt of how much money we're able to collect on that and fix the kinks before the next council goes out. So I would make a motion that we amend it to include a sunset provision of 2 years.
And what was the reason again for the sunset? Because we would not have to vote to terminate it, or what'd you say?
Right. Essentially, it would come before us, and it wouldn't be a government program that just goes unchecked. It would force it to come before us. And
So
make sure
force
we-
re-accountability
Right.
without some council member in 2 years saying, hey, let's look at it again. You want it,
Right.
you want it clearly delineated.
Right.
I got you. Well, we, was that an amendment to the motion?
I moved for that. It was a motion to amend, so somebody's got to
So,
second me.
yeah, okay, so we do need the second on her amended motion.
I'll second that.
Got this second. So discussion on the amendment. Mr. Roddy?
I think me and Christie kind of touched on it. I think after our last meeting, I think I was thinking more so a little longer period of time versus a 2-year period. I was thinking more of a 5 or 10-year revisit or expiration to where it could be revoted back in. Because after I talked with David Swenson about it, trying to project how much money would actually come in over a period of time, and looking at what some of the other areas, I think we talked about Greenville, some of the other areas throughout the state that's doing it, and has been doing it for a while. The goal here is to get a pot of money to be able to go out and purchase up property to possibly do whether it's spec buildings or get property off the market so residential don't come. And I don't think 2 years is enough time to get enough funds to be able to go out and probably, in 2 years, we probably won't have enough money to even go out and purchase any property of a sizable matter. So I could support a sunset date or expiration date to where we revisit, but I don't think 2 years is going to be enough or a longer period of time to be able to really see what we're trying to achieve. If the goal is to get some funds, take some property off the market, to avoid some residential going in certain areas. But 2 years, I just don't think it's a long enough period. I would be more inclined of a 5 or 10 year scenario.
Did you accept the 5-year?
I won't be here 5 years, maybe. I would, if that's the consensus of the council. If we're still, if everybody's is interested in doing that, but they're not, I'd like to hear from the rest of them.
Okay, Mr. Winkler.
Personally, I would not support the sunset just because if it's not a good idea in 2 years, Councilmember Cox will still be sitting here in 2 years. She can bring it back up. Any council member can have something put back on the agenda, so she can bring it back up and we can do it at that time, and if we all agree, fine. But to put that on there, that just doesn't give the full support behind the purpose of this thing. And, in the last month, I know all the council members have seen some of the things that have happened. Fairfield County, been working for 2 years. They just tied up 1,000 acres in Fairfield County. And they used they didn't buy the 1,000 acres, but they used $3.5 million worth of Fairfield County money that they had set aside, and private money, which is public-private partnerships that we talk about a lot. Right now, we couldn't do that because and we wouldn't be able to do it in 2 years. There's not going to be enough money in this fund in 2 years to even think about that. Richland County's buying 1,000 acres south of Columbia. Anderson County just bought land on I-85. Coney County already owned land. Spartanburg and Cherokee County are doing a joint park on I-85. Everybody all around us is tying up this land, and our low-hanging fruit is in about 4 of y'all's districts.
Mainly her district right now.
South 77 is
Right.
where a lot of this money is the easiest place to do it. I'd love to see a lot of it come to District 3, but that's gonna be after y'all all run out of land over there. Then we'll start getting some over here somewhere around York. So a 2-year sunset, I couldn't support at this time.
What about a longer one, 10-year, 5-year? Or are you opposed to a sunset?
I fully 100% support this fund because the 7 people are sitting up here, and hopefully, whether it's this 7 or another 7, have enough sense that the voters put them up here to make the right decisions for these things. So I fully 100% support this fund
As is.
as is.
It is
If it
rather-
doesn't work, anybody can bring it back up and revisit.
I can always credit. Yes, sir, Mr. Williams.
Yeah, I've been struggling with this one a lot, whether it's a good idea today, much less 2 years from now. But at third reading, a sunset provision to add at third reading is a pretty big item without having any staff input. And I've talked to a bunch of staff about a bunch of things, but this is the first time I've heard of a sunset provision. So, if we were gonna consider it, I definitely would like to hear from staff, but I guess one of the things that has been give me some comfort about my struggle with whether to approve it or not is that if we approve it, it is completely reversible if we decide it's a bad idea. But
At any time.
correct.
Mr. Henderson?
Yes, I'd just like to reiterate one thing, and I am in no way trying to throw a wrench in the gear. I'm just mentioning TIF. TIF went on for a long time, without any benchmarks and without being able to really have some guidelines and monitoring to where we could really pay attention to what was going on. But, you know, we ultimately ended up requiring something like that. So if with this right here, I don't see a thing wrong, even if it means extending the length of time to 3 or 5 years. There has to be some accountability. And again, when I say accountability, it's just that, my goodness, there's checks and balances and everything. It's nothing personal toward anyone, individual, staff, or anyone. I think we're just being responsible by just seeing what how it's progressing. Yes, I think it's a good idea. I'm not a big fan of the whole thing, but I'm willing to come, I guess, kicking and screaming. So, but by gosh, by all means, let's put some guidelines and let's put some benchmarks here to where we can actually gauge the thing and weigh it ever so often.
Mr. Johnson?
Thank you. How it's progressing is a great term. I agree. This council should always look at every ordinance and how is it progressing? How are we doing? How are things going? We don't need a arbitrary 2 years, and obviously I'm the only one up for re-election in November who may not be here in 2 years based on y'all's comment. So I must be the only one of us with an opponent in the fall. This council has the right to take up any ordinance at any time and vote it down and eliminate it. Unlike with TIFs and other areas where I think past councils weren't diligent, there is actually an economic development committee whose sole responsibility for this council is to oversee economic development and attend meetings and make sure this money, every dime that will be spent from this fund, will be voted on by the 7 of us. So if we wake up in 6 years and we go, wow, we sure have wasted a lot of money, it'll be the people in these seats who wasted that money. This is a good idea. This is what's needed to make us competitive. This is what's needed to make us have the ability to attract bigger, better businesses that will employ more people, that will overall raise the standard of living in York County and broaden the tax base. And ultimately, that's what this is all about. This is not about, oh, this district got this and this district got that. This is about broadening the tax base for everybody who lives in York County. Because when a business comes to Fort Mill, that helps the people in Sharon. And when they go to Clover, that helps the people living in McConnell's. This is a good ordinance. I'd ask us not to add any sunset provision and to simply move forward with Mr. Winkler's motion.
Okay, and so let's move forward on the amended motion first, but I'll just add to that, I appreciate Mrs. Cox's point with that suggestion, because I think it's a worthy thought, but I believe based on what Mr. Williams pointed out, Mr. Winkler pointed out, it's up to the council members that serve here to make sure that occurs, and since per Mr. Williams, it wasn't part of the past few weeks' discussion with staff, it might be a kind of curveball to them. So that being said, I'm not going to support the amendment. So let's have a question on the amendment first. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
3? All those opposed, no.
No.
No. Hands with the no. Okay, so that's 4, so that fails. So to the original motion, which, yes, sir.
Yeah, I still got discussion.
Okay, sure.
Like I said, I've struggled on whether it's a good idea now. And Mr. Winkler brought up the fact that we couldn't spend $3.5 million. We could. We just had to vote out of the general fund. And this council has proven time and time again that they'll approve, that they're very economic development fund friendly, which means that the best, that the uses of this is actually down the road when the councils that it might not be. The biggest thing I've struggled is when we talk about budget, we talk about not using
General fund.
non-recurring funds to finance recurring expenses, and then when we have an opportunity to create some recurring funds, we don't do it. And that's what I'm surprised. We don't have a problem financing this half. It's the other half that I've concerned. And after I've talked to, your board's very active, I think I've talked to all of them, and I appreciate all the input. But at the end of the day, that concern doesn't make this a bad idea. I mean, it's needed for a lot of the things. The use of the funds today, I think the only one that I agree 100% with, the use of the fund is securing land. And we've had discussion about that, and as Mr. Johnson says, we will make the final decision up here. But I have struggled with it because I think there's a hesitancy from this council to, this is to get more tax money so we can provide the services to the residents. And I think there's been a hesitance to take other avenues to provide those same services. And I think we're getting to the point where we either have to be willing to provide the services or name the ones we're going to quit providing. But that's the soapbox I wanted to stand on with this meeting at the end of the long weekend. I realize that doesn't have anything to do with this motion. I appreciate you listening to that. I hope you will consider that when we talk about millage, because we had a discussion about millage in the budget, but we haven't said it until September. So I appreciate y'all taking the time to listen to it now. But at the end of this weekend, and it actually wasn't this weekend, it was on into this afternoon. In fact, I was afraid to call Mr. Hudson back because I didn't want to tell him I was leaning that way again, and then had to call him back and say, I've changed my mind again. But I do think that this is this can work. It is a good part of the equation. My concerns are somewhat alleviated by it is if we find out it's the wrong thing to do, it's completely reversible. We've almost come up with our cost to serve model. This is part of that equation. I want to follow through with that and make sure that we balance that and come up with a plan that we can provide the services to the people of York County. But I will support this motion.
Okay, any other comments? Yes, ma'am. Scott?
Well, I will take Mr. Winkler's comments about I'll be here in 2 years. So you can bring it up if you want to task, and you bet your sweet honey, I'll do that. I still think it's a good idea, and I think there needs to be accountability to make it work. And I have to say this too, to go on record and say Bump voted with me. My restriction, that you made my night, but I will vote for this.
That is the no end of the
Okay, is that everybody? Question on the motion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, Audra, a summary of TIA subdivision rezoning ordinances.
Good evening. For the record, Audra Miller, Planning Director. As you know, you have 3 ordinances before you tonight concerning the TIA process. I just wanted to touch briefly on a couple issues to make sure that staff has fulfilled council's intent on this, and also to answer some questions about the process that we will be following if these are ultimately approved. When this went in front of the Planning Commission approved the TIA ordinance without any additional recommendations. That's number 7 on your agenda. For number 5 on your agenda, which is actually the zoning ordinance, they did have 2 recommendations which were not brought up by council during second reading. The main one was the Planning Commission was concerned, I think, that staff would bring the rezoning process to a halt by not moving along quickly enough on reviewing the TIAs. So I wanted to go over our process, which is pretty much policy driven. First and foremost, one of the things that staff is going to institute as part of a policy is we are going to make it mandatory for anyone submitting a rezoning application to either attend our pre-submittal meetings, which are every Thursday, or to schedule a meeting with staff. And we do that so that we have a chance to sit down with the applicant and explain to them what the process is, what the time frame is, and also to understand what their project is and hopefully jumpstart the TIA process if they have to do one. So they're not surprised when they come in and present an application to us, and that's the first time they hear of this. Also, there is a commitment from staff, and we will fulfill this commitment. The way it will work is when the rezoning application is submitted, if we have not previously determined it for the applicant, we will look at their application, make sure it's complete, and then send it forward. It will be distributed to our transportation planner and to our zoning administrator. They will look at the site plan to make sure it fulfills the intent of the ordinance, but more importantly, on the transportation side, we will be doing the calculations for the trips. How many trips will the project generate? And that's going to be one of the main factors in deciding what type, if any, TIA you do. Are you going to do a Tier 1 or a Tier 2, or is the project so small? And the best example I have is a couple rezonings you have on the agenda tonight for first reading, where they're just rezoning a parcel so they can do a house. Of course, they're not going to do a TIA on that. So our commitment that we will meet is that we will only take 5 days to provide that information to the applicant. So within 5 days, they will have their information. That way, if they don't need a TIA, they're good. We will move them along in the process. With that said,
Probably include like a small business, like a solo dental practice or something like that.
most likely, yes, yeah. What the Planning Commission, however, recommended to council was they wanted us to put in the ordinance specifically that staff would have 20 days to review the TIA. What we explained to the Planning Commission at that time is SCDOT has 30 days. It is very hard for me to imagine any project that would involve a TIA would not involve a state highway. So by default, it's a 30-day process. Our standard review time is 21 days, 21 business days, which turns out to be 30 days.
So you're saying the chance of just being a county road is kind of moot?
Yes.
So-
More than likely, it's going to involve,
Well,
we have so many state highways.
99.9% is going to be dictated by a South Carolina DOT timeframe.
Yes.
Okay, which we can't override.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So that was item number 5 on your agenda, those recommendations. Also, I just wanted to point out, it will most likely not be September, more likely October, maybe even November. We will be providing to you and Planning Commission as part of the rezoning process, you will get a summary of the traffic impact analysis. We're not going to attach it if we have one. They're so large that that's more than you probably want to read in a night. So we will do a summary for you. That summary will contain what the recommendations are out of the TIA, including the mitigation. Because we are bringing in the Planning Commission and the council as part of this process, I would request that when you make any motion, you be specific as to if you're adopting those recommendations in the TIA as well. If I don't have that, it's going to become very difficult legally to enforce them. Lastly, what I wanted to also bring up was rezoning site plans. As part of this process now, there will be a site plan with every rezoning application. Those are not binding site plans as the ordinance is drafted today. That was intentional on staff's part because I don't think we're quite ready for that type of process. If I had a binding site plan, any change to it would have to come back to council for approval. But I wanted to point this out because if you see something in the site plan that is important to you or is a factor in your decision, if it's not required in the ordinance, it's just conceptual to us. So the best example I have, there is a rezoning that will be coming up in the next month. They do have a site plan attached to it. There's residential next to it. It's a commercial project. They have their water quality features next to the residential and some open space, which actually provides a bigger buffer. I don't dictate where open space goes, and water quality features go where the water goes. So unless you say that site plan is a condition of the approval, the applicant could change that and all that open space could be transferred somewhere else.
The the water and the buffer, just that part.
Yes.
Contingent. And you could say, put your building where you want, but that's going to be where that is.
Absolutely, yes. And so I just want to point that out, that if those are important factors to you, it really does need to be part of your motion and as a condition of the approval. If not, we, the staff, would just view it as a conceptual plan. The last thing I wanted to point out is we are not going to tell an applicant that their site plan is incorrect. So if they had the wrong buffer, the wrong setback, something like that, we would just mention it in the staff report. We didn't want to get into a back and forth. You've got to change your site plan, really slow down the rezoning process. So we are being very clear with the applicants. Council does not grant variances. Those go to the ZBA. So if it is incorrect in the site plan, they did not get a variance. They still have to go through the process at a later date if that's what they need. So I just want.
If their site plan is wrong and we adopt it, and we adopt it as a condition of moving forward, is that this is what it must look like, and all the buffers are wrong, what then?
What I
You
would.
at that point going to say, hey, council, you're about to.
Yes, so first I would hope that I would do that. If I miss that, which is very possible, it would probably have to be a two-step process to be the most conservative way legally. I would come back to you first and say, look, this is incorrect. They have to get a variance for this. I need you to agree that the site plan can be amended, and then we would go to the ZBA for a variance. But we will point those, we are going to point those out in this staff report. There'll be a newest section that says their buffer is incorrect, or with buffers especially, there are alternatives for a lot of the developments. It can be a 50-foot buffer, for example, with trees and shrubs, or you can have a smaller buffer if you put up a fence or a wall, things like that. So those were the items that I just wanted to point out and make sure there were no questions about.
Any other questions? Thanks, Audra.
Thank you.
All right, next item, consider third reading of an ordinance to amend the code of the County of York, Chapter 155, entitled Zoning Code, Sections 155.009, Definitions, 155.571, Initiation of Amendments, subsections B, C, and D, 155.572, Planning Commission Report, subsection B, in order to amend the definition of site plan, require a site plan and traffic impact analysis be submitted for all applications for amendment, rezoning, to preclude the Planning Commission from considering application for amendment, rezoning until an application is complete, to add traffic impact factors as a consideration for the Planning Commission report, to provide for a public hearing, and to provide and to take effect September 1st, 2016, and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, consider third reading of an ordinance to amend the code of the County of York, Chapter 154, entitled Subdivision Codes, Sections 154.029, Preliminary Plat Review, subsections B and D, and 154.030, Preliminary Plat Application and Supporting Data Requirements, subsections A1 and A4, in order to revise preliminary plat review procedures by requiring all application requirements be met before the Planning Commission may review an application for a preliminary plat, to establish findings for preliminary plat approval by the Planning Commission, to amend the application requirements for a preliminary plat to include traffic impact analyses, clarify the application requirements regarding SCDHEC approval of septic systems, to provide for a public hearing to take effect September 1st, 2016, and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, consider third reading of an ordinance to amend the code of the County of York, Chapter 154, entitled Subdivision Code, Sections 154.004, Definitions, and 154.037, Plat Approval Process, Streets, in order to add definitions for average daily trips, American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, Institute of Transportation Engineers, and traffic impact analysis methodology guidelines, to amend traffic impact analysis requirements to their entirety, to provide for a public hearing and to take effect September 1st, 2016, and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, rezoning action, consider third reading case number 1607, rezoning from RC2 to BD3, 1626 Darby Road in the Rock Hill community.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. What-
Mr. Roddy, is that with the condition that it be limited to mini
Yes.
storage? Thank you.
Include the conditions.
I'll second that.
Okay. Discussion. Question on the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, new business. Consider approval of a lease agreement for office space for the solicitor's office.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, consider first reading of an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a fee agreement by and between York County, South Carolina, and Rudolph Venture Chemical Incorporated to provide for a fee in lieu of ad valorem taxes, establishing the applicable assessment ratio and millage rate, and providing for other matters related thereto.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, consider first reading of an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a fee in lieu of ad valorem taxes agreement to provide for a fee in lieu of ad valorem taxes incentive to Crescent Lakemont East LLC, including its affiliated and related entities, formerly identified as Project Crescent, the inclusion of certain property in York County, South Carolina, and a multi-county industrial or business park and other matters related thereto.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, consider approval of a venue agreement with the York Chamber of Commerce for the utilization of county properties for staging Summerfest activities.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, council consider contract approval with Kimley Horn to not to exceed amount of $100,000 for cost estimation risk assessment for potential roadway improvement projects associated with the 2017 capital projects sales and use tax initiative.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, council to consider contract approval with HDR Engineering of the Carolinas and a not-to-exceed amount of $100,000 for cost estimation risk assessment for potential roadway improvement projects associated with the 2017 capital project sales and use tax initiative.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Yes, sir. Mr. Williams.
I just want to point out, there's been a lot of discussion about the estimating process of the pennies program. This is the answer, and I think it looks very promising to help alleviate some of the woes in the past. It's very good, very good and different approach.
Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, council to consider approval of change order number 1 to Granite Contracting LLC's construction contract in the amount of $263,250.25 for construction of a 10-inch sewer force main on the TKK Gold Hill Road connector project for York County.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
Quick.
Yes, Mr. Johnson.
One of the things that was noted in the notes was that it would sit in the right-of-way, and we would save money long-term by doing it today as opposed to later. When you say right-of-way, are we ever considering that this road may actually be larger than it's currently drawn, and we're going to end up moving it in 20-15 years when we decide to expand the size of this road?
That's a good question. We've got engineering here.
There.
Because this is one of our things, I think we are very short-sighted sometimes, and we want to save money, but you're not going to save any money if we decide to expand the road, and now you got to move your own sewer line that you just laid 12 years before.
But this is a change order. This is something that's already been
Yeah.
contracted out. I mean,
Now, this is an additional. This
Yes.
is additional.
well, it says
Why is it
change
called a
order.
change order?
Now, one,
Yeah.
Because they got the original contract to build the road, now they're getting
Yeah.
this to put in a new sewer line.
Yeah, we have a.
well, we're just expanding the one that,
there.
yeah, I would think. They,
Mr.
I
Williams.
guess, one thing that was discussed at the meeting with the utilities company the other day is exactly whether or not sewer needs to be outside the right of way. So I don't know how far those discussions are gonna get, but sewer typically doesn't get disturbed. It's the water lines that they're concerned about. So I don't know if that fixes the problem, but that was some discussion, but I did give enough time for the Penny staff and engineering to show up.
Yeah, yes, sir. Go ahead.
Good evening. This is actually an extension of the force main that we initially did with the T-Gate project that went towards Gold Hill. Now we're going to take it from the same man who will go towards Stonecrest. As far as being in the right-of-way, it's cheaper now while it's under construction because there's a gas line that's going right beside that new gas line that York County Natural Gas is putting in, and it's inactive right now.
All right, let me stop you right there. We're allowing York County Natural Gas to lay a gas line that we're going to piggyback on. My question is that gas line and this sewer line going to be where we want to expand this road one day?
Well, it's inside the right-of-way now. Now, if this road gets expanded, they'll have to go outside the right-of-way.
And we'll have to pay to move that gas line.
Yes.
Because that's how we do things in York County. We pay the utilities to move their lines when we do that. And that's my problem. Why not lay this line 20 feet out right now?
Then you got about 20 feet of right of way.
Yeah.
So that's the problem.
What's cheaper, buying right away in 10 years when it's more expensive and moving a line, or doing it today and doing it right the
Well,
first
if you
time?
know you're gonna expand it, you maybe so, but
Yeah,
if
is
you
that a
don't
project?
expand it,
We
it's
don't
not.
know.
Well, I don't know.
We don't know what project's gonna be on
I
the
can't
list.
assume,
But
I
Hubert
assume
Grand Park-
traffic's not going to get better in Tega Fort Mill over the next 15 years.
Neither's 49.
So I guess the main.
But to accomplish that, we would have to approve a right-of-way purchase, which would be outside of what we have right now. So we would have to go into general funds to approve right-of-way before we do this change order, which would mean we're holding up.
Yeah, and
This-
this is urgent. The gas
Well-
is going to get more expensive.
Yeah, I mean, it would delay, you'd have to allow for it, then if you don't get the right-of-ways and you're going back, you've held up the highway and all that
This
stuff,
goes to
so.
planning. This road's been on the books since 2004. We're 12 years into a road that cost, what, $1.2 million originally, now it's a $10 million road? I mean, let's
Yeah, there's
be
a lot
honest,
of
a
history
three-quarter of a
there.
mile road at $10 million. At some point, we ought to try to save a little money on this thing.
That's right. There's a lot of history here too, though, that we know the reasons for the expanded scope from what was approved, and what actually ended up happening was due to our, not our fault. It was due to other folks.
Again, is this going to mess up your entire timeline if we hold up tonight? You're nodding yes. it would. So, all right.
One of the things you have to remember, though, we do this on all our pennies roads, and I don't think we've ever, as far as I know, reading everything that I've read, we've never said, all right, this is the pennies road that we want now. In 3 pennies' time, we might extend it, so do we, because we move utilities, just about everything, so.
Don't you think if we would start thinking a little farther out than today, we might save some money long-term? And that's what I'm trying to get us to here today is, we save money when we buy right-of-way, when we did the Fort Mill bypass. We said, we know we're gonna expand this. It would have been very silly to allow utilities to have then put things in where we knew we were gonna build it. I guess part of this comes to the process, is I'm frustrated with a process which doesn't contemplate, oh, I'm gonna have to dig up this gas line that I just put in the ground. You know, and so I guess I'm having heartburn over this whole thing.
Well, the good thing about this particular road, it's not a state road. The majority of it is a county road. So now DOT is getting to the point where they're making all the utilities get from under the pavement. But if it does get expanded someday, it'll be the county's decision whether to move it from up.
We could just pave over the gas line.
Yeah, the gas line will have to be.
Yeah, the gas line.
The sewer.
And if you're moving the gas
The
line.
sewer
you might
may
move the
not
sewer.
have to be,
You got it?
but the
You
gas
got it?
line will have to.
You got any other comments, being this is kind of in your wheelhouse?
Oh, we'll have comments about that later on, but for this particular issue, it was not brought before the Pennies Commission, or the Pennies Committee before today. So we're all hearing this first time today.
Yeah.
These issues, we only hear selective things through the Pennies Committee, and we discussed that today at our meeting, which I'm happy to give you in our report.
Yeah, and this force main is actually coming from the Water and Sewer Department.
The Sit in the Pennies project?
Yeah,
This is water and sewer.
yeah, and Enterprise Fund is paying for this.
Say that last part.
It just happens to be on a penny's job, and this is not.
Yeah.
And this is water,
Pennies.
sewer,
Water and sewer.
money.
Who are we
Right.
paying, who is paying it? Is general fund money?
The Enterprise.
Enterprise, yeah.
Well, the
The
best
water
thing
and
is,
sewer enterprise, okay.
Water Sewer Enterprise will pay to lay this, and then pennies will get
Absolutely.
to pay to move it in 15, 20 years if we decide to
Enterprise should
expand the road.
definitely pay that.
It's just, I'm just frustrated with, there has to be some consideration today of what we're gonna spend long-term. And I know that it costs money to buy right-of-way, but it doesn't cost half of what it's gonna cost in 20 years to buy that right-of-way and move the line, so. That's my frustration.
Yeah, and I sympathize with, I think we all do, with Mr. Johnson's frustration. Government can be kind of myopic and focus on that task, and then down the road, surprises come up. But I think based on everything you're saying, it's kind of like it's D-Day now, and delaying things will just add to the expense. And David, do you want to add anything, or?
No, but I will say that we have a number of force mains under the highway.
Okay. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
Council to consider approval of Black and Biotech Engineering contract and a not-to-exceed amount of $253,496, which includes a 10% contingency for updating the master plan for the Western Water Distribution System.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, council to consider and approve clarification to the current membership of the Building Board of Appeals as designated by the Finance and Operations Board at their June 2016, so that Mr. Schick and Mr. Harper should serve as members, and so that Mr. Crenshaw and Mr. Ferrara should serve as alternates. Do
Move
you?
to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item,
I'm
council.
abstaining.
Okay. Did you get that? He's abstaining.
Why?
Yes. Reason?
I own a building with Mr. Ferrara.
Oh.
Consider approval of adding approximately 400 feet of Crosby Lane to the list of county council approved road closure candidates due to roadway safety concerns, and authorize the county attorney's office to petition the court for road closure.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, council to approve the planning commission's recommendation to rename McKinney Street to Legion Road.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, council to approve the planning commission's recommendation to rename Fort Mill Southern Bypass to Fort Mill Parkway, beginning at the intersection of Dobie's Bridge Road and Holbrook Road, and ending at the intersection of Tom Hall Street and Highway 160 East.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All those, yep,
Some comment.
Ms. Cox?
Was this was brought up by a constituent earlier. Michael, you're laughing. Tell me, remind me.
You travel across the road at Springfield Parkway, you
Right.
go below it, it's the Fort Mill Parkway. It's just
Yeah, I was wondering
town
about
of
that
Fort Mill
myself.
randomly.
So the town is asking
Yeah,
for
this
this
is the town.
change to be made. Yeah, because there had been residents who'd called me and said, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing from people out there.
But we'll do it anyway.
Okay, well, no further comments? Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
Mike, come on.
Yeah, I kind of have to say no, too, on that one.
Brett.
Well,
Wait a minute, wait a minute. Let's back up here.
What do you,
Let's reconsider.
what's,
Okay, tell me what you just said.
Well, hang, we've already had the vote, so let me clarify the vote. It was,
well, if we mess it up, we can fix it.
it was,
But I mean, I didn't.
four, I think, that were for and three opposed, the three of us in the middle here. So any further discussion?
Now, the comment was, I
Well,
thought,
wait a minute, Mr. Henderson had the floor first.
I mean, there was obvious concerns here and obvious confusion to some degree, and I would hope that the chairman would reconsider that we at least look at this once more.
You want
based
to
on
you want to revote it?
whatever we got to do to reconsider.
Okay, who made the motion originally?
it doesn't matter. You need to make a new motion to reconsider, and it sounds like Bruce just made that, and I'll second it.
Yeah, this is kind of a first for me, so Michael, what's the proper?
Prevailing vote needs to
Right.
be moved to reconsider
Reconsider, okay. So anybody in the prevailing foursome?
Bruce was.
Bruce?
Bruce just did it, and
I
I'll
just
second
made
it.
the motion.
And they were
Okay,
both
so-
in the prevailing vote.
So you need a second out of the prevailing group too?
No, just a second.
Just a second. So we got the revisit motion.
Yeah.
Do we have a second?
Yeah, second.
Okay.
Vote on the motion to reconsider on that.
You're right.
Okay, so, question on the motion to reconsider. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Okay, so we're going to reconsider.
Well, now you need to have, actually need to have another motion, but I got a question before we make a motion.
Go right ahead.
The discussion, I thought you said that if the folks that you were hearing for wanted to change it from bypass to parkway so the parkways would match. You saying they want to make the road the same name all the way through? What did I miss? And I apologize, I wasn't paying 100% attention. I will admit that.
Well, I think one of the problems.
But that's what I thought you said.
Is the council, and I'm as guilty because I voted that way, back when we originally opened up the one part of the bypass, is we went ahead and we renamed it the Fort Mill Parkway, as opposed to keeping it the name Springfield Parkway all the way around. We just chose 160 as an arbitrary line and said,
Okay.
north of this is this, south of this is this. And so we've named about half of this road the Fort Mill, what is it called? Fort Mill Parkway. And
Okay,
they're
so
now
we
asking
named,
us simply to name the rest of the road the Fort Mill Southern Bypass. But I guess one of the questions I started laughing when this came up because I've had numerous people come up to me who live out there and they just think this is this is just not needed. They're like, the road is, you just keep changing the name of a road that you have signs up, now you're gonna put up new signs, you're gonna keep just changing the names of their roads.
So they want to retain the road Fort Mill Bypass. I mean, the name.
They wanna keep the name, yeah.
They want,
that's what
but
it is.
then, okay.
Well, the Fort Mill Southern Bypass is the name
Well,
of the road.
I'm beg your pardon, Fort Mill Southern.
So, okay, well, when we were originally part of discussion, I see the merit in having one name
I do
road.
too.
But so what the most original motion was taking it from 3 to 2. I see that better than having 3. So,
I think if now's our chance,
But if
though,
we wanna change-
to defer this and let's
yeah,
get
if we
some
want to change the
consensus.
whole thing to Springfield Parkway,
This,
or the whole thing to Fort Mill Parkway, we need to have a lot of input from some other folks.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
Well-
I'd like to make a motion, I don't know who has the.
Please do.
I'd like a motion to defer this item for further consideration by the council.
What about the
There's,
next 3 or so?
apparently there's a timeline on it too.
I don't know the whole history with this, but I do know I was on an email probably a month or two back, and I think my understanding was they wanted the whole road to be Springfield Parkway, and not Fort Mill Parkway and Springfield Parkway.
That's my question.
That's
Next couple
was my
items
understanding on the
here.
That's
email
not
I
what
had
this
was on.
says.
Why are we renaming it Fort
Yeah,
Mill?
that's not, well, that's
I think
a
the town
good,
of Fort Mill is recommending that. That's my understanding. Is coming
If I
from-
may, I
So-
probably was not on all the emails, but Jean Moore tried to accommodate some of the residents, and I'm sorry, I cannot remember what the name was going to be. She proposed that to the town of Fort Mill, including the planning director, and that was met with a resounding no.
so
That
they want to keep 2.
they want Fort Mill Parkway as presented tonight. That's what their planning commission approved, and that is what the town of Fort Mill has requested.
I've been approached by folks, not only on this issue, but with the others that are coming up. And I think if this is an opportunity for us to have this discussion, then I think we should have it before we vote, because folks are concerned about confusion on the roads and knowing which way to turn. Folks that aren't from the area don't necessarily understand it, and they get people running down their streets that aren't supposed to be there. I don't know that there's anything that can be done, but I would certainly second a motion to defer items 12, 13, and 14, just to make sure we get it right.
And that's my concern with this. I hear we're changing the road, and 12 says to Fort Mill Parkway, but then 13, 14 say we're changing some other roads to Fort Mill Southern Bypass, which we just took off the name on 12.
Okay, so I
So
think,
I'm really confused, and I'm needing the local council member to help me with it.
To it from Fort Mill Southern Pass, which is correct when it was written, but when we vote on it, we'll be.
Yeah.
so I think hearing from the Fort Mill representatives and your point, Robert, I think I hear a consensus that we did have a motion to defer, right? Didn't you
We
make?
do have a motion.
Okay,
for
we got a second.
12, 13, and 14.
Okay, so question on the motion, all those in
Have we
favor
had
say
a
aye. We
I
did,
second.
Ms.
Oh, I
Cox?
thought you
God seconded it.
Yeah, Ms. Cox did. And, okay, question on the motion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, rezone action. Consider first reading case number 1612, rezone from AGC 1 to RC 1, 1399 Falls Road in the Rock Hill community.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, rezoning action. Consider first reading case number 1614, rezone from AGC 1 to RUD at 555 Rolls Road in the Catawba community.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, consider first reading case number 1615 to rezone from RC1 to AGC at North Burris Road in the McConnell's community.
I move to approve on the reasoning that it is a less intensive than what the zoning is now on this. You know, the planning commission recommendation was approval of 7-0, so I'm asking to move forward with a second reading.
Need a second.
Second.
Discussion. Yes, Mr. Williams.
All I would add is I am concerned about staff denial, but as in the other denial representative, and reserve the right to change my vote as in the previous motion we were talking about.
Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, consider first reading case number 1616. Let me see where that address is. Lazy Hawk Road in the Rock Hill community. That's all it shows. Okay, need a motion.
That's all you gonna read?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm gonna move to approve based upon the recommendation of staff, and that those provisions are in there. Let me ask this question first before I make that motion. If I move to approve this, it's going to be without the requested modification because they did remove it. I don't have to say anything different in my motion to make sure that's clear, right?
Yes.
I can just move to approve.
They removed the request on the loading dock locations.
Okay.
So that is not before you tonight.
Okay.
So your motion.
And I don't need to have any conditions in order to protect that issue, so it's just, okay. I move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, council to consider rejection of all bids received regarding bid number 2362 for the 2015-2016 C Fund resurfacing project.
Where am I?
Move to reject.
Oh, my gosh.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
I need to make a motion to reconsider that last zoning amendment. I didn't understand it correctly. Can someone second me on that?
Okay, so.
All right, so
Need to vote on the reconsideration.
Yeah, what was your motion?
on the rezoning number 18, I'd like to
To
move to reconsider
reconsider?
that, yeah.
And we had a second on that reconsideration?
I'll second.
Discussion on the, okay, question on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. This is my concern. There was a request that the applicant wanted to change an amendment to eliminate the noise barriers that were previously put in that. And as I'm understanding it, what I'm trying to do is to follow staff's recommendation. And so what I thought I did previously was to do that, but it doesn't look like that's the case.
You did. We prepared the staff report so far in advance that by the time we submit them, the planning commission has come forward. They removed that request the night of the planning commission. That's why it's in bold. The applicant requested removal of this proposed amendment.
But they did put in the two that you support.
Yes,
That's-
they maintain those
Two
two.
that
I'm trying to
support were
make
put
sure
in, the
this
one
is
that
what
were
you-
opposed was
okay.
removed.
Yes.
Ms. Cox was good with her motion.
So I was good. But we'll do it again.
Let's
We'll do it
reconfirm.
a second
Yep.
time.
Do we need to?
Move to approve.
Second.
Yeah, because you withdrew the.
Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed, no? Thank you, Ms. Cox.
Of course.
Okay.
We haven't had a
Talk about
break.
that one again.
It's time to take.
Okay. Where are we?
What did I
Okay.
vote?
I'm gonna have to make motions.
I have no clue.
C-Fund, we did that one, we're on.
Okay, we're on 20. Consider first reading by title only of an ordinance to authorize the execution and delivery of a financing agreement necessary to provide funding for the construction of a new station for the Riverview Special Fire Tax District, to authorize the execution and delivery of all documents and/or instruments necessary or appropriate to the consummate such agreement and to provide for other matters related thereto.
We got county manager one.
Yes, Bill?
Yeah, before we do anything with this, I have recently been briefed, just so you all know, briefed by the manager of TKK that the mayor is making a recommendation that instead of doing this, that York County fund 3 city firefighters for 7 years, and this would cost about $840,000 spread over those 7 years, which would be a savings from $1.5 million to about $700,000. We can move forward with this and not do anything other than that we've done the first reading, but we need to investigate that because it's a big savings, and you know, we
So
haven't been
deferral?
officially to do anything else, so defer.
I think what he's-
and y'all
so
tell-
you're-
Those three officers, three firemen, they will cover all of the area that this would have covered, correct?
Yes, and the thing about it is, there's also some areas that, some building areas that are gonna be there over the next 2 years that opens up the roads to help them get there a lot quicker than they would now, and there's also talks of annexation over the next couple of years, so I think it's something that we need to discuss.
But you're still saying you want us to pass first reading on this? Is that
I
what
would
you're-
pass
only
first
one.
reading.
You would
but then-
Doesn't preclude us from doing that in the
So
future.
you want to keep the process moving, but heads up, we might
But I
be
want
headed
you
in a
guys to
different.
tell me to move forward, and
Okay.
Yeah, I think we ought to,
because I haven't been officially told by anyone, this is just a recommendation that came to me.
I don't, was it a motion been made?
Yeah, I was getting ready to ask that. Has there been a motion made after I read it? I don't think there has.
There has
No.
not been a motion.
So-
I'll make a motion that we approve first reading, but that this matter get directed to the Public Safety Committee for study and review.
Thank you.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, consider first reading. Consider first reading by title only of an ordinance amending the York County Procurement Code by amending section 35.07B8 in order to clarify the role of the York County Purchasing Director in the related process and authorizing or seeking participation in the contracts negotiated and established by the state of South Carolina, and by amending section 35.01D3 in order to clarify the county's use of state contracts while maintaining other requirements in the code, and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? What? Yes, sir,
I'm
Mr.
going to support
Williams?
it by title only, but I'm very interested to seeing exactly what all that means. I imagine I will at second reading.
Okay. Question on the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, council to consider declaring an 86 KME fire truck apparatus and associated equipment as surplus and award the fire truck and equipment to the York County's Oakdale Fire Department.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, council to consider award of bid number 2356 regarding the purchase of 34 sets of peak performance turnout gear on behalf of the Department of Fire Safety to the lowest responsible bidder, Newton's Fire and Safety of Graham, North Carolina, for a total amount of $71,668.60.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
I have a couple of
Yes,
questions.
Ms. Cox.
We've been back and forth, and there's been a lot of discussion. I know Tommy's here and has kept me informed about this particular bid and are not choosing the lowest bidder. And I had a question come up, and we've had lots of discussions that came up at the very last minute today, and I just want to make sure for purposes of the record that our county manager and our purchasing director are the ones who have done a no bid on the first two bidders.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Basically, what happened is part of the contract when it was sent out, or the RFP, it had to be, they had to be made in the United States. The first one was done in Canada, so it was different country. And the second one, the internal heat protect, the moisture barrier, basically is not the same one that came in the specs. They made a recommendation that we amend it so they could use theirs. But the fire folks decided, because they're our experts, of course, that the one they had, they knew it worked. It was the one that everybody used and they were used to, so they'd rather go with the one that was in the bid. And all of that is perfectly legal, and so we went with what they said.
I just want to make sure that, and again, just to alleviate any other concerns, have we ever accepted bids from Anderson Fire and Safety before? Because this was the concern that was raised, that there is a the question was, it wasn't manufactured in the United States. So my understanding, and I just want to make sure we followed protocol, we didn't do anything different in terms of eliminating that number one bidder, is that you stand behind that, because there was a question about the number one bidder does have a manufacturing facility in Alabama, and I want to make sure that I've,
Yeah, and they do, but when they were asked that, they told us that it was from Canada, and then when they were thrown out, then they came back after that and said, oh, by the way, we've got one in Alabama. So,
do they have one in Alabama or not?
I.
Because if they don't, that makes it so much easier.
I'm
We
getting ready
made
to say what you're gonna
contact,
say.
we made contact with them.
And they do not have,
They have a facility in Alabama, but they could not verify that it was a manufacturing.
they could not verify that they manufactured that
That's
product in
correct.
here. Okay.
Yes, Mr.
I
Williams.
just had the same concern when I asked Ms. Sheffield. She verified that and said that they tried, but when she asked the question, but I also asked where it came from, because Manufacturing USA may or may not, determine how well it is. But she said it had more to do with delivery, and they're going to look at it in the future. But it also said that it has been in there for years and years and years, and that's one of the things that they're going to look at and see if they can tweak it. But for this bid, it wasn't put in there special. It's been in there for years and years and years, and it was a condition that wasn't met.
Yeah. But again, delivery had nothing to do with us turning the two down.
Correct.
Because it wasn't in
But
there.
that's why the specification was in there,
Yes,
and that's
sir.
why we're going to look at it again, was my understanding.
Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, consider approval of nominated applicants for service for boards and commissions from the Finance and Operations Committee meeting on July 18th. So you want to take over, Mr. Johnson?
Move to approve Jeff Bouchard, York County Economic Development Board. Jimmy Sprouse, York County Economic Development Board. Mark Hamrick, Keep York County Beautiful. Marilyn Hakeem, Keep York County Beautiful at large. Valerie Lynch, Board of Assessment Appeals. And Teresa Bass, Employee Grievance Committee.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any nominations from the floor? There being none, question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Do we have a consent agenda motion?
Move to
Somebody,
approve consent agenda.
Second.
discussion. Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, committee reports. Pennies for Progress, Chairwoman Christy Cox.
Okay. Let me get my notes together. We met today at 4:30, and we met for a little bit longer than what we anticipated meeting, but it was a productive meeting. We got a brief update on the projects and any items that were going to appear on the council agenda. We also received an update on the Pennies Commission meetings and understand that they're going to be meeting, the next meeting will be in Western, I forget if it's Sharon. I wrote it down and now I can't find it.
It is.
And this is, at this meeting, it's my, where is it? Sharon. The commission is going to start putting out their projected project list. So it will be the first step in them identifying some projects.
This is the, for Pennies 4, right?
Right.
Have they mentioned anything about maintenance yet?
No, well, I mean, the commission hasn't. I think at this point, what we've done is one of the main purposes of our committee meeting was to follow back up from the Citizen Advisory Committee and the recommendations, and to actually report back to the council with some recommendations that we present to you all and would like for you to agree to. And those were several things, and I can email you this list of the things that we are bringing forward to you. Number one, we have recommended that the program stay in-house. The reasons for that are that our current staff is doing an excellent job. Through our independent audit that was conducted, there was no evidence of any nefarious conduct, and we are moving forward with recommended changes. We were a pioneer in this project, and we've learned some things, but we're not in a situation as some of the others are, and our
How about
program is
in-house
doing well.
management?
Yes, we need to stay in-house management, right. Keeping the program managed in-house by county staff will ensure public accountability over the projects, provides greater local control. We avoid special interest politics, and we avoid third-party contractors, and it allows for greater fairness in the bidding process when it comes to contractors. That was the first recommendation. Second was that all projects on Pennies 3 be completed. The voters approved the program because they understood that all the projects on the list were going to be done. And one of the major citizen complaints that was echoed by the Citizen Committee was that several of the projects had not been reached, although they had been voted on. And quite honestly, we come as a community together to vote on these projects, and when the first 4 only get done and the rest don't happen, then you lose public confidence in it. So our recommendation was that in addition to that, with the economic perspective that we've already invested considerable time and money with engineering and right-of-way acquisition costs, we lose money if we don't complete all of the projects that are on that. So that was our second recommendation, is that we as a council agree to, and if necessary, do a resolution to our commission to approve that. Third, we agree with the Pennies Ad hoc Citizen Committee that we need to reduce and control utility right-of-way costs and define the scope of our projects with better detail at the outset. Now, you gentlemen pipe in if I say something that wasn't. We unanimously approve this as our committee, so there was some question.
Mr. Johnson said he totally agrees with that.
Thank you. I didn't hear that.
I was thinking it.
This is the issue. The reason for the cost overruns, and this is where the media gets frustrating. This was an opportunity that our Citizen Ad hoc Committee had in order to come in and to make this a good program. The media could have done that. And what I want to make sure is clear to anybody who's listening and paying attention to this, the reason for the cost overruns was not increased construction cost. It was due to a failure to define the scope of the project at the outset with specificity. It was due to outside contractors managing that did not have accountability. We've dealt with that issue. It is done. It was due to increasing the scope of projects without voter or council approval. These projects went to the people with a defined number, and when those things got increased, it wasn't brought before council. That was dealt with because it was with the previous contractors. One of the other reasons that we went over budget was due to increased right-of-way and utility costs that were not included in the estimates. There was some discussion about some right-of-way was included, but not the amount that we actually paid for. 35 to 40% of all Pennies 3 did not go to actual road paving, but actually went to those right-of-way and utility costs. That was not factored in to Pennies 3 estimates at all. That's one of the issues that was caught. And again, that was done prior to the transition from the contractor to the full in-house county staff. So the recommendations were that we work and that there's already been steps taken to reduce the right-of-way and utility cost, and you can do that by several things. Focusing the money that we have on repaving existing local roads that don't require right-of-way and utility relocation costs. The recommendation that came from our committee was that we recommend that the commission consider, and this comes from the people, the Citizen Ad hoc group, 30% of the Pennies projects be devoted to maintenance or repaving of existing roads, not additional or new projects. What we did not have an opportunity to discuss is how do we get there and what should that look like, but this is a starting point for us, and if we need to debate the next part of that, that's probably something that's better dealt with as a full council or in a workshop.
And the heart of that is do they specify the roads to be for maintenance in the resolution, or is it specified that they can just be?
How do we go about doing that?
Right.
And I think it probably would be worth our while to have a conversation with our state delegation to help them understand what we're trying to accomplish and make sure that we can get what we want done. Also, a way to control those costs is to be very selective on the projects that require right-of-way and utility relocations. And if possible, obtain written estimates, utility agreements at the outset. I know that we've done a good job. Staff's already had a meeting and that was coordinated with the Pennies Commission that invited the utility folks to the table, and they've had some discussion. I haven't seen any minutes from that, so I'm not sure of the details, but I think that, we're at a point where we need to obtain written estimates and get the utilities companies to we're going to require to come to the table and to say, this is how much it will cost. And get them to commit to a number so that we know exactly what we're bidding at the outset. Or consider going to prior rights law and consider condemnation. Bottom line is we've got to get that number from the utility providers before the projects are chosen. Was there any other, was that not?
Well, as part, we were talking about better estimates from utilities, and we were hoping that what we approved provides those better estimates. I think that was their aim, or that was the discussion that where the utility meetings came up the other day, that those numbers would come through the process, but those, anticipating those variables, the risk to change would identify, because a lot of times when the utilities were figured before, then the road changes, and that changes the utility price. So this is the risk assessment with the changes is supposed to do that. And the only other comment I would make is the one that Chairman Blackwell made. That's where we lost unanimity when we tried to decide exactly what maintenance was, whether they had to be specified or not. But
Well, there was
as she said, we'd talk about that later.
Yeah. And finally, we wanted to ensure that the commission has provided clear and accurate cost estimates of projects at the outset, and that we do conservative projections of revenues so as to ensure that all of the projects are completed with the funds in place. So those were the recommendations that we agreed on.
Thank you, Ms. Cox.
Before Ms. Cox goes to the next, I would just like to ask that I be notified of the meeting in Sharon, so that I can.
It's what's next Wednesday at 6 o'clock, Sharon Community Center.
You have been notified.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Mr. Henderson.
I want to add to, and I know we're not going into the woods on this, but as far as the maintenance goes, I think it would be very important that we consider, when it comes to maintenance, repair, maintenance, resurfacing of where something tears up, whatever it may be, that 30%, it's almost impossible to know where that's going to end up being needed. So
Correct.
I don't see how in the world we could name specifically where that's going. And also, there was something else, but, oh yeah, we need to make sure that we specify, and if we don't work the cobwebs out of the maintenance part of this issue, and soon, it could make a big difference on how happy the voters will be at what we're trying to do to overhaul this thing and have the public have their favor in this. So I think all that's very important. And again, all this ultimately was a good meeting, and I think we've got some good goals.
Thanks, sir.
Mr.
Yes, sir, Mr. Roddy.
Christian, she touched on.
You want to agree with her again, correct?
Yeah, I'm definitely agree with her again. I'm on a roll tonight.
All righty.
About all the projects being done that were promised. One thing that I didn't hear, I think I've had some discussion with some other people about the projects that are not completed from the previous one. We need to make sure they're at the top of the list on the next one before any new projects get on the list. I think that's the only way that we can assure that all the projects get done. And definitely, whether it's in my district or anybody else's district, I think that's only right, it's only fair that those projects do go to the top of the list before any new projects come on board. If we have to specify that during the voting period, but how we need to do it, it needs to be at the top of the list so people know that we're still committed to doing these projects and committed to the point where they're at the top. Not that, yeah, we're gonna do them, we'll come up with some funding along the way. They need to be at the top of the project list for the next round. So I think that will definitely, one, it goes a long way to reassuring public trust, confidence in the program, that those that have gotten left out on previous projects that's still dangling out there needs to lead the way on the next list.
Okay. Next committee report, Justice and Public Safety, Chairwoman Christy Cox.
The committee met today at 5:30 and was provided a report and recommendations from our county manager regarding the fire service 10-year planning process. There were discussions to move forward with hiring a consultant that's going to be fair, unbiased, and that will be able to have the qualifications to help us make those revisions and to make those changes for the 10-year plan that's coming up. And we also discussed possibility of changing our meeting schedule and inviting folks from the EMS side of things and having quarterly meetings, and we tabled that for later discussion. Is there anything else?
And how about the, with the consultant RFQ or?
Yeah, we're ready, ready to move forward with that.
Versus just administrator just going ahead and doing it?
We're working on that, sir.
Okay,
The chiefs.
We're going to get the right person on board.
okay. All righty. Now we're at council member non-agenda comments. There being none? do
Well,
we-
I got one. I was waiting on Robert to make it. Robert and I got an email from a happy citizen.
Yeah.
And thought it would surprise that. Two things she's really happy about. Add the church road is open. And then she's a neighbor that they live on a county road and they saw a pine tree and they were really worried about it might fall in the way of traffic, and they called Public Works and Eric's not here. That's where he was. Oh, well. Called Public Works and they came and took it, not only took it out, they did such a good job, they cleaned it up. But she was really happy. We get all the emails that, about folks that aren't happy, so I thought that was worth sharing. Sorry for taking up
Excellent.
time.
I appreciate that, Mr. Williams. Any other comments? There being none, do we have a motion for executive session?
Yes. I move we go into the discussion, go into executive session for a discussion of a contractual matter regarding Carolina Water Service and personnel matters relating to the assistant county manager and the library director.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Let's try to be back in 5 minutes so we can finish up around 9 o'clock.
Chad, that's
Adjourned from executive session, there's no action items, so do we have a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.